The checkbook was open on my kitchen table when my future daughter-in-law told me I wasn't invited to the wedding. I had already written the date in the top right corner. My pen was hovering over the line where $14,000 would become official when I looked at my son and said, "Why do you need my wedding check before I've even received an invitation?" Graham's eyes dropped to the little ceramic bowl of sugar packets between us. Natalie answered, "You aren't invited." The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere inside the wall, an old pipe gave one tired knock. I looked at Graham because there are sentences a mother hears with her ears and sentences she has to confirm by looking at her child's face. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of his coffee mug. "Natalie," he said quietly. "What?" she said. "You said we had to tell her." I waited for him to look at me. He didn't. The strange thing was that I had spent the previous week worrying about what shoes I would wear. I had ordered 2 pairs and returned both. One made me look like I was trying to be 27, and the other made me look like I had recently had both knees replaced. At 64, apparently, there was no dignified middle ground. I set the pen down. "What do you mean? I'm not invited?" Natalie sat very straight in the chair across from me. She had worn a cream-colored sweater, even though it was a warm Sunday afternoon, and the sleeves covered half her hands. She kept pulling them over her fingers. "We've made a decision about the kind of atmosphere we want," she said. "The kind without me in it?" Her jaw tightened. "This is exactly why Graham was afraid to tell you." That got his eyes up. "I wasn't afraid," he said. Natalie turned to him. "You've been putting it off for 3 weeks. I was waiting for the right time. You asked me to do it. I asked you to help me explain. I am explaining." They looked like a couple arguing over directions while the car rolled toward a lake. I closed the checkbook but kept my hand on it. Graham noticed. "Mom, can we just talk through this before you react?" I asked a question, and Natalie answered it. She certainly did. He exhaled through his nose. It was a habit he had inherited from his father, though Peter usually did it when assembling furniture or reading instructions written in 4 languages. Graham did it whenever another person's feelings became inconvenient. Natalie placed both hands flat on my table. Her engagement ring caught the light above the sink. "You haven't respected our boundaries," she said. "We've tried to let things go, but this wedding is supposed to be a safe space for us. A safe space. Yes. From me." Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. More like she was irritated that I had made her language sound silly merely by repeating it. "From conflict," she said. "Will your parents be there?" Graham shifted in his chair. Natalie's hands disappeared into her sleeves again. "Yes." "Your sister?" "Yes." "Graham's sister." "We invited Leah." I nodded once. "His aunts?" "Some of them." "And which dangerous faction am I representing all by myself?" "Mom." That was the first time Graham had said the word since sitting down. Until then I had been Elaine, apparently, a creditor with coffee. He reached across the table, not for me, but for the checkbook. I slid it closer to my body. His hand stopped. "We have a payment due, Tuesday," he said. "That's why I asked if we could come over. I assumed you were coming over to see me. We are seeing you. Graham, you've been here 20 minutes and asked for $14,000 before you finished your coffee. I told you this payment was coming. You told me there would be wedding expenses. You also told me I should wear blue because Natalie's mother was wearing green and you didn't want the pictures to look Christmassy." Natalie looked at him. "You said that?" He gave her a baffled look. "It was a joke." "No, it wasn't," I said. "You sent me 3 shades of blue. That was months ago. 6 weeks. Things changed." That was the first honest sentence anybody had spoken since they arrived. I got up and carried my mug to the sink. My coffee had gone cold, but I poured it out slowly anyway. Behind me, a chair creaked. Graham said, "Can you sit down? I've been sitting down." "Then can you not do that thing?" I turned. "What thing?" "The quiet thing where you make everybody feel like they're on trial. You brought your fiancé to my kitchen to tell me I'm not invited to your wedding, but you'd still like my check. I don't think my dishwashing technique is the problem." Natalie looked toward the hallway. Her eyes stopped on the framed photograph hanging beside the thermostat. It was one of the last good pictures of the four of us before Peter got sick. Leah leaning into me, Graham making bunny ears behind his father's head, Peter pretending not to notice. I wondered if Natalie had ever really looked at it before. She turned back to me. "This isn't about the money. Then leave without it." Graham pushed his chair away from the table. "Come on, Mom. What, you promised?" "Yes. I promised to help pay for your wedding." "This is my wedding. Apparently not enough of it to include your mother. You're making the gift conditional." "I didn't know I needed to specify that I expected to be invited. That's a condition." I stared at him. Graham had always been good with words when he needed them to behave like furniture. Move this one over here, turn that one upside down, and suddenly the room looked completely different. Natalie leaned forward. "This is what we were concerned about. You use help to keep a place in Graham's life." I sat back down. "Is that what he told you?" She looked at him, then at me. "It's what I've experienced. Tell me what you've experienced." "We don't need to go point by point," Graham said. "I think we do." Natalie gave him a quick, sharp glance. She came into our apartment without permission. My mind went to a rainy Thursday in March. Graham had called me after 10 at night. His voice was shaking. He said he and Natalie had been fighting for hours, and he needed me to come over. I had used the key he gave me because nobody answered the buzzer. "You asked me to come," I said to him. He rubbed the back of his neck. I said I needed to talk. "You said, 'Please come over.' I was upset. And the door? I might have said to use the key." Natalie's face changed by half an inch. It was enough. "You told me she showed up," she said. "I told you she came over. You said she inserted herself into a private argument. She did." "After you called her?" I was trying to explain the context. I could have enjoyed that moment. A meaner version of me wanted to lean back and watch the fault line run between them. Instead, I remembered what I had done after I walked into that apartment. Natalie had gone into the bedroom and shut the door. Graham had sat at the kitchen counter with his head in his hands, and I had begun gathering takeout containers because cleaning was easier than witnessing. I had wiped their stovetop, loaded their dishwasher, and asked my 35-year-old son if he truly believed marriage would cure his habit of waiting for other people to make his decisions. Natalie had heard me. I knew because the bedroom door had opened before I finished the sentence. "I shouldn't have cleaned your kitchen," I said. Natalie blinked. "I shouldn't have stayed once I understood you wanted privacy. Graham called me, but I could have spoken to him outside or told him to call me the next morning." I crossed a line. Graham looked relieved, as if I had finally found the correct confession. "But that doesn't explain this," I said. His relief vanished. Natalie folded her arms. "It wasn't only that night." "No, I also said the engagement felt fast. You said we were using a wedding to avoid deciding whether we could live together. I said that to Graham. He told me." I turned to him. "Why?" "Because we don't keep secrets." Natalie gave a small sound that might have been a laugh if anything about the afternoon had been funny. I asked, "Did you tell her the rest?" Graham's face reddened. "The rest of what?" Natalie said. "The part where he asked me if I thought the engagement was a mistake." Graham stood. "This is not productive." Natalie looked up at him. "You asked her that?" I was processing. Processing what? My mother had concerns. You had concerns. I had questions. Everybody has questions. Not everybody takes them to their mother and then tells me she's the one questioning our relationship. He walked to the window over the sink and stared into the backyard. Peter had planted a maple tree there the year Graham started college. It had been no taller than the garage then. Now its branches shaded half the lawn. I opened the checkbook again. Both of them went quiet. For 1 weak second, I considered writing the check just to end the scene. That had always been the danger of money in our family. Not greed, relief. Money could finish an argument before anybody had to say the thing underneath it. I tore out the half-completed check. Graham turned from the window. "Thank you." I ripped it once through the middle. His expression went blank. Then I ripped it again and placed the 4 pieces beside the sugar bowl. Natalie stared at them. "That was dramatic. You told me I wasn't invited to my son's wedding in front of a bowl of artificial sweetener. We passed subtle about 15 minutes ago." Graham came back to the table. "You cannot be serious. I am not paying for an event I've been deliberately excluded from. You gave your word. I gave my word based on what you led me to believe. Nobody said the money bought you an invitation. And nobody said I was donating to a private function being held by people who don't feel safe around me. You're punishing us. I'm declining to reward this." "There it is," Natalie said. "Reward. That's how you think." I looked at her. "You may be right about some of my bad habits. You may even be right that I made myself too present in your relationship. But you are sitting in my house asking me to disappear and leave my wallet behind. You don't get to call that a boundary." Her face went pale, then hot. For the first time, she did not have an answer ready. Graham did. "If we invite you, will you write the check?" "No." He stared at me. Natalie turned slowly toward him. He said, "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I won't know whether you want me there or whether my chair costs $14,000. That's ridiculous. Then don't invite me." "Elaine," Natalie said, and hearing my first name from her felt colder than anything else that afternoon. "The deposits are non-refundable. I'm sorry to hear that. We made commitments." So did Graham. He snatched his keys from the table. The metal scraped across the wood, leaving a thin white mark. "Dad would be ashamed of this," he said. The room changed. Natalie whispered, "Graham?" He looked startled, as if the sentence had belonged to somebody else and he had merely been standing close when it went off. I glanced toward the hallway photograph. Peter, caught forever with Graham's fingers behind his head. "Your father isn't available to help you hurt me," I said. "You'll have to do that yourself." Graham opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Natalie stood and gathered her purse. She looked at the torn check, then at me. "We should go." At the door, Graham finally met my eyes. I had imagined his wedding day in embarrassing detail. Peter's cufflinks, the photograph near the guest book, Graham pretending not to cry, me pretending not to notice. I had imagined all of it except my son standing in my doorway, angry that I would not pay to be absent. "We need that money by Tuesday," he said. "No, you don't." His face hardened. "You want it by Tuesday," I said. "There's a difference." He left without saying goodbye. Natalie followed but paused on the porch. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she said, "He told me you understood." Then she walked to the car. I watched them back out of the driveway. Graham was talking before they reached the street, one hand cutting through the air. Natalie faced forward. When the car disappeared, I went back to the kitchen and picked up the 4 pieces of check. Underneath them was the white scratch from Graham's keys. I rubbed it with my thumb until the skin began to burn, but the mark stayed exactly where he had left it. I carried the pieces to the trash, dropped them in, and immediately reached in to take them back out. I didn't have a reason. The check was useless. I had torn through the routing numbers and split my signature line cleanly in half. Still, I stood over the trash, holding those pieces between my fingers as though I had accidentally thrown away evidence. In the end, I tucked them into the back of the checkbook and put the checkbook in the drawer beside the takeout menus. Then I washed 3 coffee mugs. Natalie's had a faint rose-colored print around the rim. Graham's was the one Peter used to call the ugly mug, an oversized brown thing Graham had painted for me at a pottery studio when he was 22. It said, "World's Okayest Mom," in crooked yellow letters. He had given it to me for Christmas, laughing so hard he could barely get through the explanation. I scrubbed it harder than necessary. At 6:30, my phone buzzed on the counter. I'm sorry I mentioned Dad. I read it twice. Then 3 gray dots appeared beneath the message. "We still need to figure out the payment situation. Can we talk tonight after everybody cools down?" The apology lasted exactly one sentence before becoming an invoice. I put the phone face down. 5 minutes later, it buzzed again. "Mom?" I left it there while I made dinner. I cut an onion, browned half a pound of ground beef, and opened a jar of sauce Peter had always claimed was almost as good as homemade, though neither of us had ever made sauce from scratch. I boiled enough spaghetti for one person and accidentally made enough for 6. My phone stopped buzzing. Rain began around 8, a quick tapping against the kitchen window that became a steady rush. I carried the blue enamel pot from the bottom cabinet into the upstairs hallway and placed it beneath the yellow stain in the ceiling. The first drop landed while I was still standing there. Plink. I had received 3 estimates for the roof that spring. I had thanked all 3 men, put the papers in a folder, and decided the repair could wait until after the wedding. $14,000 wasn't everything I had, but it was enough that I had begun treating every other expense as selfish. Plink. I moved the pot 2 inches to the left. My phone rang downstairs. For one foolish second, I thought Graham had decided to come back and say the rest of the apology. Then I saw Leah's name. My daughter did not ease into conversations. She considered small talk a gateway drug to wasted time. "What happened?" she asked. "Hello to you, too." Graham called me. Of course he did. He's losing his mind. That sounds uncomfortable. "Mom." I opened the refrigerator and stared inside, though I had no intention of eating anything else. "Did he tell you I'm not invited?" There was a pause. "He said you already knew they were keeping things very limited. Did he say I wasn't invited?" "He said there had been a misunderstanding. The misunderstanding was that I believed I was going to my son's wedding. He made it sound like you'd known for a while. I found out today." Another pause, longer this time. Leah said, "That's terrible. It should have helped." It did, a little, but her voice had already taken on the careful tone people use before telling you that the terrible thing does not change what they want you to do. "But," she said, "there it is. I don't agree with what they did, but you promised them the money." I closed the refrigerator. "I promised when Graham was sending me dress colors and asking which picture of his father to display." "I know. Did he mention they need protection from me?" "He didn't use that word. They need a safe space." Leah made a low groan. "Natalie said that, didn't she?" "She did. I hate when people use therapy words like bug spray." I laughed before I could stop myself. The sound startled me. Then Leah said, "Still, $14,000 is $14,000. That is the sort of insight they teach at business school. You know what I mean? I don't think I do. If you withdraw it now, Graham will never see it as a boundary. He'll see it as proof that Natalie was right." "Right about what?" "That your help has strings." I leaned against the counter. The kitchen was too clean. 3 mugs sat upside down on a towel. The sugar bowl was centered on the table, and Graham's key mark showed white against the dark wood. "Were you invited?" I asked. "Yes. Are you going?" "I haven't answered." "Why not?" "Because now I don't know what I'm walking into." "You're walking into your brother's wedding. With you at home?" "That isn't your decision." "Oh, come on. You know I can't just sit there while everyone pretends this is normal. I don't want you to stay home for me. You say that now. I'm saying it because I mean it. You also said you wanted to give him that money before he told me I was welcome only in the form of a check." Leah breathed into the phone. I could picture her pinching the bridge of her nose. She had started doing that when she was studying for exams in college. Unlike Graham, who expanded every crisis until it filled the available room, Leah tried to compress hers, small enough to fit between 2 fingers. "I'm not defending him," she said. "You're asking me to pay him. I'm asking if you want this to be the thing that tears the family in half. The family is already in half. I'm just refusing to cater the event." That was almost funny. It was entirely funny. She did not laugh. I sat at the table and ran my finger over the scratch. "Leah, your brother sat in this chair and listened while Natalie told me I was too dangerous to attend. Then he reached for the checkbook. If I pay him now, what exactly am I teaching him? He's 35. Yes, And somehow the lesson remains available. You always do that. Do what? You talk about helping us like it's a lesson you're teaching. The answer I wanted to give arrived fast and polished. I had never made her accept anything. I had never asked to be repaid. I had worked overtime, gone without vacations, and learned which grocery stores stayed open after 10 so I could bring food when either of them was struggling. Instead, I asked, "When have I done that to you?" Leah was quiet long enough that the rain filled the line. "Do you remember when I moved to Providence?" she asked. "Of course. You gave me money for the security deposit. You needed it. And then every time I talked about how difficult the job was, you reminded me you'd helped me get there. I was trying to encourage you not to quit too soon. You said, after everything it took to get you set up." I remembered saying it. I also remembered the tiny apartment with radiators that clanged all night, the manager who had lied about parking, and the phone call where Leah told me she hated her new supervisor. In my memory, I had been practical. In hers, apparently, I had attached a small hook to the help and tugged whenever she moved in a direction that scared me. "That wasn't fair," I said. She went silent. "I shouldn't have said it that way." "Okay. Do you want a larger apology? I can make one. I just don't want to staple it to what happened today. I'm not trying to. Graham's behavior can be wrong even if I've been wrong before." "I know." "Do you?" "Yes, Mom. I know." The upstairs pot caught another drop. "Plink," Leah asked. "Are you okay?" "No." It came out so plainly that my throat tightened. I looked across the kitchen at the empty chair where Graham had sat. One of his coffee drops had dried on the table beside it, missed by my cleaning frenzy. I kept waiting for him to say something, I said. I thought if I stayed quiet long enough, he would realize what was happening and stop it. He should have. He didn't even try. "I'm sorry." "So am I." We stayed on the phone without speaking. With anyone else, the silence might have felt awkward. Leah and I could be quiet together. Even when she was little, when she was younger, I corrected myself in my own mind. We could sit in the same room reading separate books without needing to prove we were close. "I'm not going to the wedding," she said. I closed my eyes. "Don't do that. I don't want to be there. You wanted to go yesterday. That was yesterday. And if you stay home, Graham will say, 'I forced you to choose.' I don't care what he says. I do. Not because I'm afraid of him. Because I don't want that to become true. You're asking me to celebrate people who excluded you. I'm asking you to make your decision based on your relationship with your brother, not mine. He's being an ass. He can be an ass and still be your brother. This family really needs a better mission statement." That time, we both laughed, though mine broke in the middle. After we hung up, I carried my cold spaghetti to the trash and scraped it in. I went upstairs to check the pot. The leak had sped up, each drop making a small, dark circle before the next one struck. My navy dress hung on the outside of my closet door. I had chosen it because Graham liked the color, or said he did. It had a soft collar, 3/4 sleeves, and a skirt that moved when I turned without trying to turn me into a lampshade. The saleswoman had told me I looked elegant. I had bought it before I could talk myself into something beige. I touched the sleeve. Then I took the dress down, put it in the closet, and closed the door. The next morning, Graham called at 8:12. I was awake, but I let it go to voicemail. At 8:14, Natalie called. She did not leave a message. At 8:20, Graham called again. This time he did. "Mom, it's me. I'm trying to fix this before it gets worse. The venue needs the installment tomorrow, and we have other payments coming up. I know yesterday got ugly. I shouldn't have brought Dad into it, and Natalie probably could have handled the conversation differently. Probably. But we made plans based on your promise. If 14 is too much now, maybe we can talk about a smaller amount. Or you could pay the venue directly if you don't trust us. I don't want money to destroy our relationship." I listened twice, mostly to be sure I had heard that last sentence correctly. Then I went downstairs, took the 3 roof estimates from the drawer beneath the phone chargers, and spread them across the kitchen table. The middle estimate came from a company whose owner had pointed at the ceiling stain and said, "You can wait, but the roof won't." I called his number. He remembered the house. He could start Thursday if the weather cleared. When he asked whether I wanted to schedule the work, I looked at the white scratch on my table and said yes. The roofer's name was Dale, and he had the calm voice of a man who had spent 30 years telling homeowners that water was coming from somewhere other than where they thought. "I'll put you down for Thursday," he said. "Crew gets there around 7:30. Might be noisy. I'm awake by then. It'll still be noisy. I raised 2 children and was married to a man who sneezed like a cannon. I'll manage," Dale laughed. "Thursday then." When I hung up, I sent Graham a text. "I heard your message. My answer about the money is still no. I'm willing to talk when the purpose of the conversation isn't changing that answer." He responded before I could put the phone down. "So you're willing to talk as long as there's nothing to talk about." I typed 3 different replies and erased all of them. At 9:15, Natalie called again. I watched her name fill the screen until the final ring, then answered. "Hello." She sounded surprised. "Elaine, you called me." "I know. I wasn't sure you'd answer. Neither was I." There was traffic behind her and the rhythmic click of a turn signal. She was probably on her way to the architecture firm where she worked as an office manager. Natalie disliked speaking on the phone. She preferred texts because, as she once told me, people say more than they mean when they can hear each other breathing. "I need to ask you something directly," she said. "All right. Is the money completely off the table?" "Yes? Even part of it?" "Yes." She went quiet. Graham said, "Maybe once you'd slept on it, I slept badly, but I did sleep." The answer is no. "I see. I don't think you do." Her turn signal kept clicking. "He told me the money was secured," she said. "He said you had set it aside specifically for the wedding and that the check was a formality. I did set it aside. That isn't the same as giving it to him. He said the only reason you hadn't transferred it was that you wanted to make the payments yourself." I never said that. Another click. Another. "So when we signed with the venue," she said, "you hadn't actually committed?" "I had committed to helping with the wedding. I believed I was part of that wedding. You keep tying those things together. They are tied together. A gift isn't supposed to buy access. Neither is a relationship supposed to require an entrance fee. You were never going to be happy unless you were involved in everything." "What did I ask to be involved in?" "The dress shopping. You invited me, then canceled the night before. Because my mother's flight changed. I said I understood. You said it 3 times. I was trying to make sure you knew I understood. It felt like pressure." I leaned back against the kitchen counter and looked up at the ceiling. In daylight, the water stain resembled a continent no explorer would want credit for discovering. "Natalie, I can believe I've made you feel pressured without agreeing that I should pay for your wedding after being excluded from it. That isn't the only reason." "What are the other reasons?" A horn sounded near her. She muttered something and the turn signal stopped. "I can't do this while I'm driving. You called me while you were driving." "I called to ask about the payment." "Yes, you did." She disconnected without saying goodbye. I set the phone beside the sink. 10 minutes later, I received a message from her. "Thank you for clarifying." There was something almost funny about being thanked for clarifying that I had been lied to, but I couldn't locate the joke. By lunchtime, my younger sister Marcy knew. Marcy had been born 11 months after me and had spent 63 years insisting that this made us practically twins, despite the fact that we looked nothing alike and agreed on very little. She wore large earrings, drove too fast, and considered privacy a temporary obstacle. She called while I was pulling dead leaves from the potted basil on my windowsill. "I'll kill him," she said. "No, you won't. I'll wound him emotionally. That may already be taken care of." What kind of son doesn't invite his mother to his wedding? The kind who calls his aunt before his mother has decided whether she wants her aunt involved. He didn't call me. He called Dennis. Dennis was Peter's older brother, a man capable of turning a grocery store encounter into a committee meeting. And Dennis called you. Dennis called everybody. I closed my eyes. What did Graham tell him? That Natalie wanted a small wedding, you couldn't accept it, and you canceled the money to force them to change the guest list. I didn't ask them to change the guest list. I know that. How? Because you'd rather sit alone in your house and develop an ulcer than ask anybody to defend you. That is a dramatic interpretation. It is an accurate dramatic interpretation. I pinched off another dead basil leaf. Marcy said, "You need to tell people what happened." No. Elaine, I'm not issuing a press release. He's making you sound controlling. Anyone who believes I withdrew $14,000 because the centerpieces weren't to my liking probably wasn't waiting for facts. Put something in the family chat. I would sooner mail everyone a handwritten newsletter. I'll put something in the family chat. You will not. He shouldn't get to tell the story first. This is not an election. It is always an election. Families are tiny, corrupt governments. I smiled despite myself. Marcy, please stay out of it. I have never stayed out of anything in my life. I'm aware. Remember when Leah moved to Providence and that landlord tried to charge her for a broken garbage disposal? That has nothing to do with this. I called him 6 times. He gave her the deposit back because he was afraid of you. My point exactly. My point is, I don't want Graham afraid of you. I want him honest with me. Marcy sighed. Fine. I won't write in the chat, thank you. I didn't say I wouldn't call Dennis, Marcy, but she had already hung up. By Tuesday evening, the venue payment had apparently been handled. That was the word Graham used in a text sent at 6:07. We handled it. Hope you're satisfied. I read the message while standing in the grocery store with a carton of eggs in my hand. Satisfied was not the word. I felt as though I had watched him struggle under a heavy box and deliberately kept my hands at my sides. It did not matter that the box belonged to him or that he had packed it with expenses he could not afford. Every instinct I had told me to help. I bought the eggs, a loaf of bread, coffee, and a lemon I did not need. On Thursday morning, Dale's crew arrived at 7:22. There were 4 men, a red truck, 2 ladders, and enough equipment to make it appear they intended to remove the entire 2nd floor. Dale rang the bell and handed me a clipboard. Could be some vibration, he said. Anything fragile hanging on the upstairs walls? Take it down. Peter had hung most of our pictures with nails long enough to anchor a ship, but I went upstairs anyway. I removed the framed photograph beside my bedroom door, the one of Peter and me at Leah's college graduation. Then I took down a small watercolor Marcy had bought at a street fair and once described as either a harbor or a nervous breakdown. The hammering began above me. Dust shook loose near the ceiling vent. I opened the top drawer of my dresser to look for a cloth to wrap the frames. Under 2 scarves sat a square velvet box, Peter's cufflinks. Graham had asked about them weeks earlier. He wanted to wear them for the ceremony. I had told him I would bring them with me. The cufflinks were simple silver ovals with a thin black stripe. Peter wore them to every wedding, funeral, graduation, and dinner, where he suspected someone might own more than 1 fork. I closed the box and returned it to the drawer. The doorbell rang just after 10. I assumed it was Dale. Instead, I opened the door to Marcy, holding a white bakery bag and wearing sunglasses large enough to conceal a second face. "You're repairing the roof," she said. "You have remarkable powers of deduction. There are shingles in your hydrangeas. They'll move them." She walked past me. "I brought muffins. You came to inspect me. I can do 2 things." She set the bag on the kitchen table, noticed the scratch, and touched it. What happened here? Graham's keys. Did he throw them? No. He picked them up angrily. Well, thank God we've narrowed the charge from attempted murder to aggressive key retrieval. Coffee? Obviously. The hammering overhead made the glasses in the cabinet tremble. Marcy glanced at the ceiling stain. "You really did need this," she said. "I know. Still feels good, doesn't it?" "What?" Spending the wedding money on your own house. I'm not spending the wedding money. I'm paying for a roof. That's the same money. No, it isn't. She studied me over the top of her sunglasses, then removed them. Before she could answer, a car door slammed outside. I knew the sound of Graham's walk on the porch. Fast, heavy, no hesitation. He rang once and then opened the door without waiting. "Mom?" He stepped into the kitchen and stopped when he saw Marcy. "Of course you're here," he said. Marcy took a blueberry muffin from the bag. "Good morning to you, too." Graham looked from her to me, then up as another series of hammer blows shook the ceiling. "What's going on? The roof is being repaired. Today? That is how appointments work." His eyes moved toward the hallway where the blue enamel pot still sat on the floor, now empty. "You scheduled this after Sunday." "Yes." He laughed once, without humor. "Unbelievable." Marcy peeled the paper from her muffin. "Careful, your keys are already wanted for questioning." "Marcy, please," I said. "What did it cost?" Graham asked. "That's not your concern. It is if you're using the money you promised us. The money was mine before I promised it, and it remains mine now." He walked to the window and looked up at the workers. "We had to give up the ballroom." The sentence landed harder than I expected. "What?" The venue moved us into the smaller room. We lost part of the first deposit, but Natalie got them to apply some of it. We cut the upgraded dinner package, too. Marcy put the muffin down. Graham turned toward me. "So congratulations. You got your consequence." "I didn't want your ballroom. You wanted us to hurt." "No. I wanted you to understand that you could not exclude me and still spend my money. Same result. It isn't. It is from where I'm standing." The hammering stopped. In the sudden quiet, I could hear Dale speaking to someone on the roof. I asked, "Why did you tell Uncle Dennis I was trying to change the guest list?" Graham's eyes flicked toward Marcy. "Did she tell you that?" "I asked you a question. I said you were upset about the guest list. You said I canceled the money to force you to change it. That's what you're doing. I told you not to invite me for the check, because you knew we couldn't afford to say no." Marcy opened her mouth. I lifted a hand, and for once, she closed it. "Did you want me there?" I asked Graham. He looked at the floor. "Before the money," I said. "Before the argument. Did you personally want your mother at your wedding?" His face tightened. "Natalie and I made the decision together. That isn't an answer. We're supposed to act as a team. You've been hiding behind your team since you walked into this house." He reached for the back of a chair but did not sit. "I wanted one day where I didn't have to manage the two of you," he said. "The two of us, you and Natalie. Every look, every comment, every time one of you decides the other one meant something. Then why didn't you say that to me? Because I knew you'd do exactly this." He pointed upward, not at me, at the roof. For a moment, I almost apologized. Then a worker dropped a bundle of old shingles into the truck outside. The crash rattled the windows. I looked at my son and said, "You were afraid I would repair my own house?" He stared at me, breathing hard. Marcy quietly pushed the bakery bag toward him. Graham looked at it as if she had offered him a live animal. "You can keep the muffins," he said. Then he walked out, leaving the front door open behind him. Dale appeared at the bottom of the stairs a moment later, dust on his shoulders. "We found more damage around the vent," he said. "Nothing terrible, but I want to show you before we cover it." I followed him upstairs. Behind me, Marcy closed the front door without saying a word. The damage around the vent looked like wet cardboard someone had painted gray. Dale pressed one gloved finger into the wood, and it sank with almost no resistance. "That section has to come out," he said. "If we cover it, you'll be paying us to hide the problem." "How much?" He named a number that made me inhale through my teeth, but did not make me reconsider. From downstairs, Marcy shouted, "Do it right!" Dale glanced toward the hallway. "Your financial advisor?" "My sister." "Ah, so yes." He showed me where the flashing had separated and explained how water had traveled along a beam before appearing 10 feet away in my hallway. As he talked, I thought about what Graham had said downstairs. You wanted us to hurt. I wanted to dismiss it. That would have been easy. The harder truth was that when I tore the check, part of me had wanted him to feel the tear on his side of the table. I had wanted the loss to be real enough that he could not walk away believing I would always absorb the damage. That did not make the roof spiteful. It made me less innocent than I preferred. Replace it, I told Dale. When I came back down, Marcy was wiping crumbs into her palm. Graham's muffin remained untouched in the bag. He's lying, she said. About what? All of it. That is a broad accusation. He told Dennis you knew. He told me last month that Natalie wanted you involved, but you were being difficult about the rehearsal dinner. I stopped near the table. What rehearsal dinner? Exactly. I haven't been asked to do anything with a rehearsal dinner. He made it sound like you were upset because they wouldn't let you host it. I offered once. Natalie said her parents might handle it, and I said that was fine. Marcy raised both eyebrows. What? I asked. You said it 3 times, didn't you? I stared at her. She tried not to smile. I said it twice. Progress. I poured out the coffee in the pot. The hammering began again, moving from the front of the house toward the back. Marcy leaned against the counter. He's been giving everybody a different version. Most people do that, not people. Politicians and men who've double-booked a weekend. He hates conflict. No, he hates being seen during conflict. Different thing. I rinsed the coffee carafe. Marcy picked up the empty enamel pot from the hallway. A pale ring of water remained in the bottom. You want me to put this away? Leave it by the sink until the roof is finished. You don't trust the repair? I don't trust weather. She set it beside the dishwasher. Are you going to call him? No, he came here. To change my answer. He also came because you spent money on yourself and it scared him. I spent money on shingles. You know what I mean. Unfortunately, I did. By late afternoon, the yard smelled of cut wood and hot tar. Dale walked me around the house, pointing up at things I pretended I could see. He promised the crew would finish the next day. When the last truck pulled away, my house felt unnaturally still. Marcy had left after extracting a promise that I would answer if she called. I had not specified when. I stood in Graham's old bedroom and looked at the boxes stacked along one wall. He had moved out years ago, but pieces of his life remained in my house as if he expected to return between scenes. College textbooks, a broken guitar amplifier, 2 lamps Natalie had said were too ugly for their apartment, a plastic tub labeled Winter, though I knew it contained 1 glove, 3 tangled extension cords, and a bowling trophy. I had joked for years that I was running a storage unit with emotional benefits. That afternoon, the joke irritated me. I pulled 1 box away from the wall, sneezed twice, and decided transformation could wait until I owned more dust masks. The doorbell rang at 6. Leah stood on the porch holding 2 paper bags from a Thai restaurant. I brought dinner, she said. I have food. You have ingredients and sadness. It's not the same. She stepped inside, noticed the smell from the roof, and looked up. Wow. Do not say anything about symbolism. I was going to say it smells like a highway. That's acceptable. Leah was 38 and had Peter's eyes, gray with a dark rim that made people believe she was more patient than she was. She wore black pants, a blue blouse, and the exhausted expression of someone who had spent all day solving problems created by meetings. We carried the food to the kitchen. She unpacked noodles, vegetables, chicken with basil, and enough rice to qualify as emergency relief. Marcy told me Graham came over, she said. Marcy works fast. She called me from your driveway. Of course she did. She said you verbally destroyed him. I asked if he wanted me at his wedding. That was the destruction? He didn't answer. Leah sat down slowly. He wants you there. That is a generous interpretation of the evidence. He does. He just wants everyone to stop making him feel guilty about it. You hear yourself, don't you? I didn't say it made sense. I handed her a plate. She looked at the white scratch near her elbow. Marcy also told me about the keys. I'm installing turnstiles next week. She'll be selling tickets. Can this come out? I tried. Leah rubbed it lightly, then stopped. Graham asked me for money, she said. I set down the carton of rice. How much? $3,000. Did you give it to him? No. Why not? Because I don't have $3,000 sitting around for floral chandeliers. I believe they cut the upgrades. Apparently not before asking everyone they know to rescue them. I took a serving spoon from the drawer. Leah said, he told me you withdrew the money because Natalie wouldn't give you 10 extra invitations. My hand stopped inside the drawer. 10, that's what he said. I never asked for one. I know. How do you know? Because I asked him who the invitations were for and he couldn't name anybody. A laugh rose in my chest but never made it out. Did you confront him? I said I wasn't lending him money. That isn't the same thing. I don't want to get dragged between you. You already are, thank you. Very comforting. We filled our plates and sat across from each other. Leah twisted noodles around her fork. He says Natalie made the final call about excluding you. Does she know he says that? I doubt it. She answered the question. That doesn't mean it was her idea. It sounded like her idea. Graham can make anything sound like someone else's idea. He once convinced me I chose to share a hotel room with Marcy at Cousin Rita's wedding. Marcy snores. She also sleeps with the television on. Your brother has always been persuasive. No. Leah pointed her fork at me. He's agreeable. People confuse that with kindness. The comment was sharper than I expected. I looked at her. How long have you been angry with him? She lowered the fork. I'm not. That sounded practiced. He called me 6 times yesterday. So the first 2 were about you. The next 4 were about money. There it was again. Not greed, relief. Graham went from person to person looking for the one who could make the discomfort stop. Leah ate 3 bites before saying, he asked me not to attend if I was going to act weird about you not being there. I put my fork down. What did you say? I asked him what kind of weirdness he was anticipating. Crying? Setting fire to a centerpiece? Wearing a shirt with your face on it? Please don't give Marcy ideas. He said he needed people there who supported the marriage, meaning people who don't ask questions, meaning I should smile correctly. Can you? Not reliably. I reached across the table and touched her wrist. Go if you want to go, I said. Don't go if you don't, but don't make yourself invisible to protect either of us. She looked at my hand, then at me. You know that applies to you, too. I'm learning. After dinner, Leah helped me carry the framed pictures back upstairs. In Graham's old room, she stopped in front of the boxes. He still has all this here? He keeps meaning to get it. For 12 years, he's been busy. She gave me a look. All right, I said. I've made it easy. You've made everything easy. That doesn't sound like praise. It isn't entirely criticism. She picked up the bowling trophy and read the plate. 2nd place. Summer League. Your father acted like Graham won the Olympics. He bought him a cake. The bakery wrote, Congratulations, Gary. Leah laughed and set the trophy down. On the wall beside the closet hung a little wooden rack with 3 hooks. One held a faded lanyard from Graham's college. One was empty. On the 3rd hung the spare key to his apartment. I took it down. The brass was warm from the room, though I knew that was impossible. What are you doing? Leah asked, returning it. Tonight? Not tonight. He'll say you're being dramatic. Your future sister-in-law believes I enter their home without permission. Your brother has apparently forgotten that he asked me to. Either way, I shouldn't have the key. Leah leaned against the doorframe. Are you sure this isn't punishment? No. The honesty made her straighten. I'm angry, I said. I don't know how to make every decision pure while I'm angry, but I know I don't want to be their emergency plan and their threat at the same time. She nodded. I carried the key downstairs and put it in a plain white envelope. I wrote Graham's name on the front, then slid it into my purse. The next morning, after Dale's crew returned, I drove to Graham and Natalie's apartment. I told myself I would leave the envelope in their mailbox. Natalie opened the building door before I reached it. She wore loose black pants and an old sweatshirt. Her hair was pulled back and she had no makeup on. She looked younger and more tired. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I held up the envelope. "Returning something." Her gaze dropped to it. "Is that another check?" "No." I handed it to her. She opened the flap and tipped the key into her palm. For a few seconds, she stared at it. "Graham isn't home," she said. "I came to give that to both of you. You could have mailed it." "Yes." Her fingers closed around the key. "This feels like a statement. Everything I do feels like a statement to you, because you make sure it does." I almost turned away. Then I looked past her into the lobby, not the apartment, just a narrow tiled space with mailboxes along one wall. "I should not have kept access to your home once it made you uncomfortable," I said. "That isn't a statement. It's a correction." She crossed her arms. "Graham said you hired roofers the day after we came over." "I did, to make a point. The estimate is 4 months old." Her face shifted. "I had a leak," I said. "It existed before your wedding problem. I didn't say it didn't." "No, Graham did." She looked down at the key in her hand. "Did you know he told Leah I demanded 10 invitations?" I asked. Natalie's eyes came up. The lobby door began to close between us. She caught it with her foot. "No," she said. "I didn't know that." Neither of us spoke. Then she asked, very quietly, "Who were the 10 people supposed to be?" "There weren't any people," I said. Natalie held the lobby door with one foot, the metal edge pressed into the rubber sole of her slipper. "Leah said he couldn't name them," I continued. "That's because I never asked. He told me you wanted to add members of Peter's family. I offered Dennis's address when Graham said they were still working on their list. That was before I knew Dennis had already been invited." "Marcy?" "I didn't ask for Marcy. He said you'd be furious if she wasn't there. I'm often furious with Marcy when she is there." Natalie almost smiled. It appeared and disappeared so quickly I might have imagined it. She looked down at the key. "Maybe he assumed you'd want them invited. Then he should have said he assumed. He probably didn't think the exact number mattered. It mattered enough for him to give it to Leah." Natalie stepped back, letting the lobby door swing wider. For one uncomfortable second, I thought she was inviting me inside. She wasn't. "I have to get ready for work," she said. "Of course." "Thank you for bringing this." "You're welcome." I turned toward the sidewalk. Elaine. I looked back. She had closed her hand so tightly around the key that its teeth pressed into the side of her index finger. "Did you tell Leah we cut the ballroom?" "No," Graham told me. "He wasn't supposed to tell people yet." "I'm not people?" "That isn't what I meant. It's becoming difficult to know what anybody means." Her face closed. I walked to my car before the conversation found another sharp edge. Graham called as I reached the first stoplight. I let it ring. He called again before I had gone 3 blocks. At the next red light, I pressed the button on the steering wheel. "What?" I said. "You went to my apartment. I returned your key. You could have given it to me. You left before I thought of it. So you showed up there when you knew I wouldn't be home?" "I did not know you wouldn't be home. Natalie has to get ready for work. I didn't enter the building. That's not the point. I believe the point was that I had unwanted access to your apartment. Now I don't. You went there to get in her head. I went there to return a key. And somehow my conversation with Leah came up. She asked why. Why what? Why I supposedly wanted 10 guests. The light turned green. The driver behind me gave a short, irritated honk. "I need to drive," I said. "Mom, you're turning everybody against me. I'm going to hang up now because you know what you're doing." "No, because somebody in a gray sedan wants to drive through my trunk." I disconnected. My hands shook for the rest of the trip home. Anger would have been easier if it had stayed pure. Underneath it was the old reflex to call him back, lower my voice, and restore the world to a setting he could tolerate. I did not call. Dale's crew had finished the back section by the time I returned. They were sweeping scraps from the driveway, and one of the men was carrying the blue enamel pot toward the garage. "Found this upstairs," he said. "I'll take it." He handed it to me. The bottom was spotted with dried mineral rings from years of leaks. "You shouldn't need that anymore," he said. "That's what I've been told." He grinned, unaware of how suspicious the sentence sounded to me. The crew left just after 4. Dale gave me the final bill, explained the warranty, and made me promise to call if I saw so much as a damp shadow. Then his red truck disappeared down the street. I carried the pot into the basement rather than returning it to the kitchen cabinet. The house seemed to notice. That night, wind pushed rain against the new shingles, and I walked upstairs 3 times to inspect the ceiling. No drops fell. No dark patch spread. The hallway remained dry without me standing guard beneath it. I should have slept well. Instead, I lay awake imagining the argument at Graham's apartment after I left. In one version, Natalie asked why he had invented 10 guests. In another, he convinced her I had confused Leah, and the story settled back into the shape he preferred. By 2 in the morning, I had composed entire conversations between people who had not invited me to participate in them. I got up and made toast. Leah called the next evening. "Has Graham spoken to you?" she asked. Define spoken. He and Natalie had a fight. "How do you know?" "He called me from his car." "What did he want you to do?" "Confirm that he'd said you wanted 10 invitations." "And did you?" "I told him he said it. I also told him you said it wasn't true." I tucked the phone between my shoulder and ear while folding a dish towel. "Then what?" "He said you were probably being technical. Apparently you've mentioned enough relatives over the past year that he felt 10 was a reasonable estimate. That's remarkable. He's very committed to the number." "Did Natalie hear this?" "She was on speaker for part of it." I stopped folding. "He put you on speaker without telling you?" "He told me after I said, 'Why would Mom want Uncle Dennis there? She hid in the laundry room from him last Thanksgiving.'" I laughed so hard I had to set the towel down. Leah laughed too. Natalie said, "You're on speaker." And Graham said, "I was about to tell her. He lives his life about to tell women things." The laughter drained away. Leah said, "Natalie asked him whether the money had ever been guaranteed. He said yes. Then she asked why you hadn't written the check before Sunday. What did he say?" "That you wanted to hold it until the last possible minute so you could stay involved. That isn't true." "I know. I asked twice if he needed a deposit earlier. He said no." "I know." "How do you know?" "Because he complained that you kept asking." I sat down at the kitchen table. There were so many small lies that I could not decide which one hurt. Each was barely heavier than a coin. Together, they filled every pocket. "Are they still getting married?" I asked. "As far as I know." "Good." Leah hesitated. "You mean that?" "I don't know what I mean. I don't want their relationship to fail so mine can be proven right." "You weren't proven right." "Exactly." On Sunday afternoon, 1 week after the checkbook had been open on my table, Graham pulled into the driveway. I watched through the front window as he sat in his car for nearly a minute. When he finally came to the door, he did not let himself in. That was new. I opened it. "Can I get Dad's cufflinks?" he asked. "No hello, no apology. Just Peter reduced to a square velvet box. They're upstairs." "Okay." I stepped aside. Graham walked into the house and glanced toward the ceiling. "Roof's done?" "Yes, looks the same." That was the goal. He followed me upstairs. At the entrance to his old bedroom, he stopped. "Why are the boxes moved?" I checked behind them for dust and moisture. "Are you getting rid of my stuff?" "Not today." "What does that mean?" "It means at some point I'd like you to take things you haven't used in 12 years. I don't have room, neither do I." He stared at the stack as if I had altered a monument. "This is because of the wedding. The wedding has encouraged me to reconsider some arrangements, so it's punishment. If I were punishing you, I'd make you take the bowling trophy first." He glanced at it. "I thought Dad threw that away. Your father nearly ordered a display case." A reluctant smile tugged at Graham's mouth. It made him look so much like the person I missed that I had to turn away. In my bedroom, I opened the top dresser drawer. The velvet box rested beneath the scarves where I had left it. I lifted it out and placed it in his hand. Graham looked surprised. "What?" I thought there'd be a conversation. You asked for your father's cufflinks." He opened the box. The silver ovals caught the afternoon light. "I remember him wearing these to Leah's graduation," he said. "He wore them to both graduations. He complained about the gowns. He said polyester was a crime against skin." Graham smiled again, then closed the lid. "Natalie thought you might keep them," he said. "Why?" "As leverage." The tenderness left the room so quickly it felt like a door slamming. "They belong to your father," I said. "I won't make you earn them." "I didn't say you would. You just said your fiancé expected it. She's upset." "So am I." He slipped the box into his jacket pocket. "Did you tell her I asked for 10 invitations? I already had this conversation with Leah. I'm not Leah. No, you're not. Did you tell Natalie I demanded 10 invitations?" He looked toward the window. "I said you had expectations about the guest list. That is not the same sentence. It's close enough." "No, Graham. It was useful enough." He turned back. "What does that mean?" "It made me easier to exclude. You had already given her reasons. I gave her reasons to dislike me. You gave her reasons to treat me as a threat. She didn't need help with that." The cruelty in his voice sounded casual, which made it worse. I held the dresser drawer open because closing it would have required my hands to move. "Did you want me excluded?" I asked. I wanted one day without tension. That still isn't an answer. "Natalie had strong feelings. You had a mother. I'm trying to protect my marriage. There is no marriage yet. There is a wedding you're asking everyone else to carry." His face went hard. "Dad would have understood. Your father would have walked into your wedding whether you sent him an invitation or not. You don't know that. I was married to him for 34 years. I know exactly how much trouble he would have caused." For an instant, Graham almost laughed. Then he reached into his jacket, touched the velvet box through the fabric, and said, "I have to go." I followed him downstairs. At the front door, he paused. "Natalie thinks I lied to her." "Did you?" "I simplified things. Those are not the same word." He opened the door. "She was the one who said you couldn't come," he said. "Remember that." Then he left with his father's cufflinks in his pocket, and I understood that even now, even after everything, he wanted one of us to carry his decision for him. I closed the door and stood with my hand on the knob until Graham's car started. Upstairs, the dresser drawer remained open. One of Peter's scarves had caught on the corner and hung halfway to the floor. I folded it, placed it back, and touched the empty space where the velvet box had been. I was glad I had given Graham the cufflinks. I was furious that I was glad. Both feelings stayed with me the next morning when I carried the navy dress into the department store. I had placed it in its garment bag, found the receipt, and driven there before I could decide that returning it was another statement. The woman at the counter unzipped the bag. "Beautiful color," she said. "Thank you. Anything wrong with it?" "No." She waited. People who work return counters develop a sixth sense for emotional merchandise. "Event canceled?" she asked. "Not exactly." "Wrong size?" "No." "Found something else?" I found out I wasn't invited. Her hand stopped on the fabric. "Oh, it's my son's wedding." "Oh, there really isn't a third sound required." She looked at me over the top of her glasses. She was about my age and wore a tape measure around her neck, though I doubted measuring people was part of processing returns. "Do you want me to say what I'm thinking?" she asked. "Probably not." Smart. She folded the dress with extraordinary care. When she handed me the receipt, she said, "For what it's worth, you would have looked wonderful." That nearly undid me. I thanked her and walked through housewares until my eyes stopped burning. I bought a set of wooden hangers I did not need because leaving with an empty bag felt too much like evidence. At home, I replaced 6 wire hangers in my closet. The improvement was not dramatic. My phone remained silent until after dinner when Marcy sent me a screenshot from the family group chat. Dennis had written, "I don't want to get involved," and then followed that declaration with 4 paragraphs of involvement. He said weddings were stressful, misunderstandings happened, and everyone should avoid assigning blame. He also said promises had to mean something and suggested that the parties concerned sit down with a neutral family member. Marcy had replied, "Who appointed you Switzerland? I called her. You promised to stay out of it. I promised not to explain what happened. You accused Peter's brother of international neutrality. He started it. Why did he mention promises?" Graham called him again. I sat on the edge of my bed. What now? Apparently, the honeymoon is postponed. I didn't know that. They used the honeymoon fund to cover the smaller reception room and some cancellation fees. A picture formed in my mind of Graham and Natalie sitting with calculators, crossing out reservations one by one. I hated that picture. I hated that my first response was to wonder what amount would put everything back. Marcy must have heard something in my silence. "Don't," she said. "Don't what?" "Whatever math you're doing." "I'm not doing math. You sound like you're doing math. I'm sitting on my bed. You can do math anywhere." I lay back and stared at the ceiling. He gave away the ballroom. He couldn't afford the ballroom. He thought he could. He thought you could. There was no softness in the sentence, but there was care. Marcy said, "Dennis wants to call you. I'm going to fake my death." He'd organize the memorial and ask everyone to pay in advance. That made me laugh. When we hung up, I returned to Graham's old room. The moved boxes still sat crooked against the wall. I opened the plastic tub marked Winter. 1 glove, 3 extension cords. The bowling trophy. A faded menu from a restaurant that had closed 9 years earlier. At the bottom lay a stack of birthday cards I had sent Graham in college. He had saved every one. I sat on the floor and read the top card. "Happy birthday to my favorite son." Underneath, in Peter's handwriting, "Your only son, Elaine." Then mine. "Still counts." There were notes about groceries, laundry, exam schedules, and remembering to sleep. In one card, I had tucked $20 beside a line that said, "For emergency pizza only." I could not reconcile the man who saved those cards with the man who carried his father's cufflinks out of my house after blaming his fiancée for my absence. Maybe that was the mistake. Believing one version canceled the other. I put the cards back in the tub and closed the lid. 2 days later, Natalie appeared on my porch holding a rectangular glass baking dish with a blue plastic lid. I recognized it immediately. I had brought lasagna to their apartment the night after Graham called me into their argument. The dish had vanished into their refrigerator and stayed there through 3 increasingly polite requests for its return. "I thought this was yours," she said. "It is." She held it out. I took it. "Thank you." The dish was empty and clean. A strip of masking tape still clung to one side with lasagna, written in my handwriting. Natalie did not leave. "Do you want to come in?" I asked. "I don't know. That wasn't one of the choices." She looked behind her toward the street, then stepped inside. I carried the dish to the kitchen. She followed, but did not remove her coat. When I offered coffee, she said no. When I offered tea, she said no. When I offered water, she said, "I'm not staying long." I sat. She remained standing until the silence became more uncomfortable than the chair. "I need to ask you about that night at the apartment," she said. "All right. Did Graham tell you we were fighting?" "Yes." "Did he ask you to come?" "Yes." Exact words. I thought about it. He said, "I don't know what to do. Please come over." And the key. I rang the buzzer twice. Then I texted him that I was outside. He replied, "Use the key." Natalie looked toward the counter. "Do you still have the text?" "I don't know. It was months ago. Can you check?" The question irritated me. It also made sense. I took out my phone, opened Graham's messages, and searched the word key. Several results appeared, most of them about car keys, a storage key, and one argument about whether Peter's old desk had a key. Then I found it. Outside. No answer. Use the key. Doors open upstairs. I placed the phone on the table and slid it toward her. Natalie read the screen. Her face did not change, but she read it again. He told me you were downstairs before he knew you were coming. He lied. He said he might have mentioned we were having a rough night, but you took it upon yourself to show up. He lied. You sound pleased. I am not pleased that my son lied to you. You're pleased, I know. I considered denying it. A little, I said. She pushed the phone back. Did you tell him not to marry me? No, you told him marriage wouldn't fix us. I told him marriage wouldn't fix his habit of waiting for someone else to make difficult decisions. While I was in the bedroom. Yes, you knew I could hear. I suspected you could. That was cruel. Yes. The agreement unsettled her. I folded my hands on the table. I was angry that he had pulled me into an argument and then left me standing in your kitchen while he acted helpless. I cleaned because I didn't know what else to do. Then I said something true in the most unwelcome place possible. You always have a reason. So do you. She sat back. Outside, a truck changed gears at the corner. The new roof held the ordinary sounds of the house in a way the old one had not. No faint drip. No worry traveling above us. Natalie said, "Did you tell him I wanted the bigger venue?" "He told me you did. I asked for the smaller one." I stared at her. "He wanted the ballroom," she said. "He said it was important to you because you'd already told relatives it would be a formal reception. I told Marcy to buy a dress. That's all. He said you were inviting people from Peter's side and we'd look cheap if we didn't have enough space. Dennis was already invited. I know that now. So he used me to sell you a ballroom and used me to explain it to you." Neither of us spoke. Natalie pulled at the edge of her sleeve. "He told me your money didn't have conditions," she said. "I asked him twice before we signed anything. He said it was his, not literally his, but that you had promised it to him years ago for whenever he got married. I offered it at your engagement dinner. He said you'd been saving it for his wedding since Peter died. I began saving because I didn't know what life would look like after Peter died. I decided to use some for the wedding after you got engaged." Her eyes closed briefly. "How much did Graham tell you he was contributing?" I asked. She looked at me. $14,000. His contribution was my entire check. He said it came from his savings. I felt no victory, only the sick sensation of finding another soft place in the floor. Natalie stood and walked to the window. "I make enough to pay my share. I would have planned something smaller if I knew. So would I." She turned. "You weren't planning it." "No, I was planning to attend." Her mouth tightened, but she nodded. "Was excluding me your idea?" I asked. "Yes." The answer came without hesitation. "Why?" "Because I was tired of feeling like there were 3 people in my relationship. Every time we disagreed, Graham already knew what you thought. Every decision came with a story about how his mother did it or what his mother would say. I told him I needed him to choose our marriage, and he chose to remove me. I told him I didn't want you there, while keeping the money. He said the money was already his, and you believed him, because it was convenient." She looked at me. "Yes." The words sat between us ugly and clean. "You meant to hurt me on Sunday," I said. "Yes." "Why?" "I thought you would turn it into a negotiation if I wasn't direct. You could have said it without enjoying it." Her chin lifted. "I didn't enjoy it. You did a little." She looked away. After a moment, she said, "A little." It was the first thing about her I trusted completely. She picked up her purse from the chair. "Is the wedding still happening?" I asked. Natalie put the strap over her shoulder. "I don't know." At the front door, she paused. "I'm sorry about what I said in your kitchen," she told me. "Not the decision, the way I said it. It was not enough, but it was not nothing." "I'm sorry I stayed in yours," I said. She nodded and walked to her car. I watched until she reached the corner. Then I returned to the kitchen and looked at the clean glass dish she had finally brought back. For months, I had thought she kept it because she was careless. Now I wondered if she had needed a reason to knock on my door. I washed the dish again, even though Natalie had already cleaned it. There was nothing on it. No dried cheese in the corners, no tomato stain beneath the lid. I filled the sink anyway, lowered the glass into the water, and watched the strip of masking tape loosen until my handwriting floated free. My phone buzzed before I finished drying it. "What did you say to her?" I did not need to ask who. The truth when she asked. "I also apologized for going into your apartment." His reply came immediately. "You showed her my texts. She asked whether you told me to use the key. That was private. So was your argument." 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. "You had no right to discuss our wedding finances with her." I placed the phone on the counter. The absurdity was so complete that I could not find a response small enough to fit inside a text message. He called instead. "You told her the money wasn't mine," he said as soon as I answered. "It wasn't. You promised it to me. I promised to help with the wedding. What is the difference?" "The difference is the part where you told Natalie the money came from your savings. I told her it was my contribution. You let her believe you had saved it. You're splitting hairs. 14,000 of them." He made a frustrated sound. "Do you understand what you've done?" I answered questions. "You undermined me." "I didn't create the answers, Graham. She was already upset. You knew that. She came here. And you took the opportunity. To do what? To prove you were right about me." I looked at the clean dish on the towel. "I did not enjoy that conversation," I said. "That must have been difficult for you. Do not do that." "Do what?" "Make me cruel enough that you don't have to listen." He went quiet. For a few seconds, I heard only his breathing and the muffled sound of traffic. "Can you call her?" he asked. "Why?" "Because she left." My hand tightened around the phone. "Left where?" "The apartment. She's staying with her sister." "Is she safe?" "She's fine." "What happened?" "She's blowing this out of proportion." "That doesn't answer me. She thinks I lied about everything. Did you?" "No." The answer came too fast. Then he said, "Not everything." I closed my eyes. "She asked whether I had savings," he continued. I said yes. "Do you?" "I had some." "How much?" "That isn't your business. You called to discuss it. I had enough for my part of the smaller plan." Then the plan changed. "You wanted the ballroom. We both agreed to it. After you told Natalie I wanted it, that wasn't the only reason. And you told me she wanted it. She did after we discussed it. You made each of us responsible for persuading the other. I was trying to make everybody happy. No, you were trying to get what you wanted without being the person who wanted it." His breathing changed. I could picture him pressing his fingers against his forehead. "Please, caller," he said. "And say what? That you misunderstood." I didn't. That there were communication issues on all sides. That sentence means nothing. It means you admit you contributed. I already admitted what I did. Not about the money. I didn't do anything wrong about the money. You pulled it at the last minute. I never gave it to you because you wanted control. No, Graham, you want that to be true because then the rest becomes my fault. He was silent long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, "You always have to win." The line went dead. I stood beside the sink with the phone still against my ear. Peter used to say Graham and I fought because we were alike. I hated that explanation. It allowed him to stand in the middle, amused and innocent, while the two of us sharpened ourselves against each other. But sometimes I could see it. Graham and I both believed that if we found the exact right arrangement of words, pain would have to surrender to logic. The difference was that I had spent years believing I was better at it. Leah called that night, but I did not answer. She sent a message asking if I was awake. I typed, yes, then deleted it. If I answered, I would ask whether she had spoken to Graham. She would tell me what he said. I would correct him through her. By morning, she would be carrying 3 conversations that belonged to other people. I wrote, "I'm okay. I love you. We can talk tomorrow, but I don't want you in the middle tonight." She reacted with a heart, then sent, "Thank God." That hurt and helped in equal measure. At 10, I went into Graham's old room and took the birthday cards out of the winter tub again. I read none of them. I tied the stack with a piece of kitchen twine and placed it in a smaller box along with the bowling trophy and the faded restaurant menu. I labeled the box, "Graham Keep." Then I labeled another donate and left it empty. I was not ready to decide what belonged in it. The next morning, Marcy arrived carrying bagels and a newspaper she had no intention of reading. "Natalie left him," she announced in the doorway. "She is staying with her sister. That is leaving. It may be temporary. Dennis says the wedding is off. Dennis says things before they become facts." Marcy walked into the kitchen. "He got an email." "From whom?" "Graham. Everybody got one except you." I kept my face turned toward the coffee maker. "What did it say?" "That due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding is being postponed." Postponed. That was the word. I measured coffee into the filter. 1 scoop, 2. A little more, because Marcy believed coffee should be capable of dissolving a spoon. "When?" I asked. "No new date." "Did he say anything else?" "That they appreciate everyone's understanding and request privacy." Marcy took mugs from the cabinet. "Which is rich," she said, "considering he called Dennis, Leah, and me before 9. Did he ask for anything?" "Mostly agreement." "Did you give it to him?" I said if he'd told the truth before ordering a ballroom, he might still have a ballroom. I turned. "Marcy." "What?" That didn't help. I wasn't trying to help. I was trying to make a point. Those are not the same thing. She stared at me, then leaned one hip against the counter. "That sounded familiar," she said. "It should." The coffee maker hissed. Marcy's expression softened. "You look terrible." "Thank you. You know what I mean. I slept. Did you?" "Not continuously." She put both hands around her empty mug. "Are you relieved?" The honest answer embarrassed me. "A little," I said. "Good." "No, not good. Elaine, they banned you from a wedding and still expected you to pay for it. You're allowed to be relieved that the train stopped before running you over. I'm relieved the date isn't sitting on the calendar anymore. I'm not relieved they're hurting." Graham hurt himself. Natalie helped. "So did you, if we're handing out knives." I looked at her. "What?" she said. "You admitted it." "I admitted I've been intrusive. I did not postpone their wedding. I know." "Do you?" "Yes." She reached across the counter and took my hand. "I know." The coffee finished brewing. We drank it at the kitchen table while rain traced thin lines down the windows. Above us, the ceiling stayed dry. Graham came just before noon. He looked as though he had slept less than I had. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes were bloodshot, and there was a dark mark on his jaw where he had missed shaving. Marcy stood when he entered. "I'll go," she said. "You don't have to," I told her. "I definitely do." She picked up her purse and pointed 2 fingers at Graham. "I'm not Switzerland." He stared at her. "What does that even mean?" "Ask Dennis." She left. Graham remained near the front door. "Did you get the email?" he asked. "No. I thought Leah would tell you." "She didn't." He looked past me toward the kitchen. "Can we talk?" "We are. Without you treating everything I say like evidence?" "I can try." He walked to the table but did not sit. "Natalie postponed the wedding." "I heard. She called the venue yesterday. We lose more money if we don't choose a new date within 6 months. I'm sorry." "No, you aren't." "I am sorry you're both in pain. That's not the same." "No." His face tightened at my refusal to pretend. "She says she can't marry me until she knows what else I've lied about." "What else have you lied about?" "Nothing important." "Graham, that came out wrong. It came out accurately." He dragged a chair back and sat. "I need you to call her. We discussed this. I need you to tell her you always intended the money as mine." "I didn't. You said it was for my wedding. I said I would give you $14,000 toward the wedding. How is that different?" "Because I was still the person giving it." He leaned forward. "Tell her you understood there might be conditions on the guest list." "I didn't. You knew she was uncomfortable around you. I knew she didn't particularly like me. I did not know my son had agreed to exclude me. I didn't agree." "Then who did?" "She said she didn't want you there." "And what did you say?" "I said I supported her." "That is agreement. I was protecting my relationship. You were protecting yourself from having to say no to either one of us." He stood so abruptly the chair tipped backward. It struck the floor with a crack that made us both flinch. I came here for help. No, you came for an alibi. His face went still. I picked up the chair and set it upright. If I call Natalie and lie for you, I said, you may get her back into the apartment. You may even get a new wedding date. But then there will be 3 people inside your marriage again, and this time you will have dragged me there yourself. He looked toward the hallway photograph. I can lose her, he said. It was the first sentence he had spoken that day without armor. Yes, I said. His eyes met mine. Do something. I wanted to. My whole body knew how. Instead, I said, tell her the truth. That won't fix it. No, it may not. He stared at me as if I had refused to pull him from deep water. Then he walked out. I did not follow him to the porch. I stood beside the overturned chair mark on the floor and listened as his car moved away, carrying a problem his mother had finally refused to solve. The chair had left a crescent-shaped dent in the floor. I knelt and rubbed it with my thumb, the same useless gesture I had performed over the key scratch on the table. Peter used to joke that I believed enough cleaning could reverse time. He was usually saying it while tracking mud through a room I had just mopped. The dent remained. I made lunch and did not eat it. I moved Graham's mug from the drying rack to the cabinet, then took it back out and placed it on the highest shelf where I would not see it every morning. At 3, Leah knocked once and entered carrying a paper shopping bag. I brought floor repair markers, she announced. Marcy told you about the chair. Marcy said Graham threw furniture. He stood up too quickly. She also said he begged you to lie to Natalie. That part is accurate. Leah took 6 markers from the bag, all supposedly different shades of brown. On my floor, 5 looked orange and 1 looked purple. Maybe the dent adds character, she said. I have enough character. She sat cross-legged beside me and tested another marker on a piece of cardboard. Did you almost call Natalie? She asked. Yes. Her hand stopped. I almost called and told her the money had been his, I said. I had the phone in my hand after he left. What stopped you? I couldn't decide whether saving his relationship would be worth becoming the liar he says I am. Leah put the cap back on the marker. That isn't the only reason not to do it. I know. If you fix this, he'd learn nothing. I know. And Natalie would be marrying someone she doesn't actually understand. I know. You don't sound convinced. I am convinced. I'm also his mother. Leah leaned her shoulder against the kitchen cabinet. Sometimes you say that like it's a medical condition. It may be. We sat on the floor with the markers scattered between us. After a while, Leah said, when I moved to Providence, I didn't tell you how bad it got. You told me you hated the job. I hated the city too. I wasn't sleeping. I'd go to work, come home, eat cereal, and sit on the floor because I hadn't bought a couch. You should have called me. That's why I didn't. I turned toward her. She ran one finger through the dust near the baseboard. If I told you, you would have come, of course. You would have rented a truck, brought furniture, filled my refrigerator, spoken to my landlord, and stayed until I agreed I felt better. Would that have been terrible? It would have been loving. It also would have made it impossible to know what I could do without you. I looked at the floor marker in my hand. I thought you needed me, I said. I did. The answer surprised me. I needed you to listen. Maybe send grocery money once in a while. I didn't need you to turn my life into a project. I don't remember turning it into a project. You made a binder. It was a folder. It had tabs. The tabs came with it. Leah laughed. I did too, because the alternative was defending the tabs. She picked up the least orange repair marker and colored the bottom of the dent. You know what's strange? What? You don't do all of this because you think we're incapable. No, you do it because being needed makes you feel safe. I opened my mouth. Nothing useful appeared. Leah glanced at me. Too much? No. Do you want me to leave? No. She returned to the floor. Good, because I bought $12 worth of markers, and somebody's going to suffer. We found a color that made the dent less visible. Then we went upstairs and spent an hour sorting Graham's boxes. I did not throw anything away without asking him. Leah held up each object while I wrote an inventory on a legal pad. Broken amplifier? Keep for now. 2 lamps that violate several treaties? Keep. Extension cords? Useful. 1 glove? Which hand? Left. Your brother is right-handed. Donate. Leah placed it in the empty box. The first item inside looked painfully lonely. We worked until the donate box held 2 cracked picture frames, a stack of obsolete computer manuals, 3 shirts Graham had not worn since college, and a novelty tie printed with martini glasses. The bowling trophy stayed. That evening, I sent Graham a picture of the boxes. I'm sorting the room. Nothing will be discarded without your approval. Please plan to collect what you want within the next month. He responded an hour later. Can't deal with this right now. I wrote, I understand. The month still applies. He did not answer. The wedding date remained on my kitchen calendar in blue ink. I had written GN 4 o'clock beneath the number and drawn a small heart because apparently I had once been the kind of woman who drew hearts on calendars. As the date moved closer, relatives stopped calling. The family group chat returned to photographs of restaurant meals and warnings about suspicious links. Dennis posted an article about forgiveness without adding a comment, which was as close as he came to silence. Graham collected the first load of boxes on the final Sunday of the month. He brought a friend named Scott, a broad-shouldered man I had met twice, and who apologized every time he touched anything. Sorry, Mrs. Mercer, he said while lifting the broken amplifier. You didn't break it. I know. Still. Graham carried the lamps downstairs. You can throw these out, he said. Natalie said they were too ugly for the apartment. They're too ugly for civilization. He looked thinner. His hair needed cutting, and the skin beneath his eyes had the gray cast Peter used to get during tax season. I did not ask about Natalie. The silence strained between us as he examined the contents of the keep box. He touched the stack of birthday cards but did not mention them. You kept these? I asked. You sent them. I know. Then why are you surprised? I'm learning not to assume what things mean to you. He placed the cards in a plastic crate Scott had brought. We started counseling, he said. I kept my face turned toward the box inventory. All right. That's it? What would you like me to say? I don't know. Something. I hope it helps. He picked up the bowling trophy. Couples counseling, he added. I understood. The counselor says I avoid ownership. I looked at him. Of decisions, he said quickly, not property. I wasn't going to ask. You had the face. What face? The one where you wait for me to hear myself. I was trying not to interfere. It doesn't feel that different. I put down the legal pad. What would feel different? He thought about it. I don't know yet. That may be part of the problem. His mouth tightened, but he nodded. Scott appeared in the doorway. Truck's pretty full. We'll come back, Graham said. He placed the trophy in the crate beside the cards. At the front door, he glanced up toward the dry ceiling. Roof holding. Yes, good. Then he left. It was the most ordinary exchange we had managed in weeks, and it exhausted me. 2 days before the date on the calendar, Marcy called with a proposal. Dinner, she said. You, me, Leah. Somewhere with loud music and irresponsible desserts. On Saturday? Obviously. No. Why? Because I don't want an anti-wedding. It's not an anti-wedding. It's a pro-you event that happens to occur while no wedding is happening. That is an anti-wedding with better marketing. You can't sit home alone. I can. You shouldn't. I'm not sure yet. Marcy went quiet. It was rare enough that I checked the screen to make sure the call had not dropped. Do you want me to come over? She asked. Not with balloons. I wasn't planning balloons. Or champagne. I was planning margaritas. No. Fine. She sounded so wounded that I smiled. Ask me Saturday morning, I said. That means you'll say no Saturday morning. It means I don't want to build a ceremony around being excluded from a ceremony. All right? And Marcy, Yes? Thank you. She cleared her throat. You're welcome. Saturday arrived bright and cool, the kind of day that would have made beautiful photographs. At 9, Marcy texted one word. Dinner? I replied. Tomorrow. She sent back, fine, but I'm ordering dessert for 3. Leah did not ask. She sent a picture of a mug of coffee and wrote, here if needed. I spent the morning cleaning the upstairs closet. At noon, I went to the hardware store for paint to cover the old water stain in the hallway. The clerk gave me a white called Fresh Start, which felt so aggressively meaningful that I almost chose another color. I bought it anyway. At 3:30, I opened the can. At 4, when Graham and Natalie were supposed to be standing in front of their families, I was on a stepladder applying primer to a brown stain shaped like a crooked island. My phone rang in the bedroom. I climbed down too quickly and caught my sleeve on the ladder hinge. By the time I reached the phone, the call had gone to voicemail. Graham's name was on the screen. I waited for the message notification. Nothing appeared. He called again. Hello? For several seconds, he said nothing. I know what time it is, he finally said. So do I. I thought I'd be married by now. I sat on the edge of the bed. There was paint on my wrist. I know. Are you doing something? Painting the hallway ceiling today? The stain was bothering me. He gave a small sound that might have been a laugh. Are you with Marcy? No. Leah? No. So you're alone? Yes. He breathed out. I'm sorry. The words were soft enough that I could not tell what they covered. Where are you? I asked. Driving? Anywhere in particular? No. I waited for him to ask me to come, to call Natalie to tell him what to do. He said, we have counseling Tuesday. I hope you go. I will. Another silence. Then he asked, did you really return the dress? How did you know? Leah. Yes. What color was it? Navy. You look good in navy. I know. That time, he laughed. It lasted only a second, but it was real. I should let you paint, he said. All right, Mom? Yes? I'm sorry today is what it is. So am I. He ended the call. I returned to the hallway and climbed the ladder. The first coat did not hide the stain, neither did the second. I left it to dry, knowing I would have to come back and do the work again. The stain looked worse in morning light. Fresh Start had dried into a clean white circle around a faint brown center, making the old damage more obvious than it had been before. I stood beneath it with my coffee and considered suing whoever named the paint. Leah arrived at noon with Marcy, both of them carrying food despite being told I was capable of feeding myself. Marcy held up a bakery box. Irresponsible dessert. It's lunchtime. I suffered through yesterday. I'm behind schedule. Leah set a bag of sandwiches on the table and looked toward the hallway. Is that the stain? It needs another coat. It looks like an eye. Thank you, Leah. A judgmental eye, Marcy said. I can still make both of you leave. They stayed. We ate turkey sandwiches and a chocolate cake decorated with strawberries. Marcy raised her coffee mug and said, to postpone things. No toast, I told her. That wasn't a toast. It was an observation with a beverage. Leah cut herself another piece of cake. Did Graham call you yesterday? She asked. Yes. Marcy stopped chewing. And we spoke. What did he want? Nothing. She narrowed her eyes. Nothing financial? Nothing at all. That's suspicious. Marcy. What? The man has a pattern. He knew what time it was. Leah looked down at her plate. I said, he was having a difficult day. So were you, Marcy replied. Yes. Did he ask how you were? I thought about it. No. Marcy made a dissatisfied sound. He apologized for what the day had become, I said. That's not the same. No, it isn't. Leah glanced between us. Maybe we can allow a bad apology to be better than no apology without pretending it was a good apology. Marcy pointed her fork at her. This family is becoming exhausting. You started a fight with Dennis over Switzerland. He knew what he was doing. After lunch, Leah helped me apply the third coat of paint. Marcy sat at the top of the stairs and offered guidance no one requested. Your edges are uneven, she said. You are free to leave. I'm supervising. You're eating cake on my carpet. I put down a napkin. Leah rolled paint across the last trace of brown. Mom, when did you first notice the leak? Last winter. Both of them stopped. Marcy said, You waited that long? I had estimates. You had a pot. The pot worked. You were going to give away $14,000 while water came through your ceiling. It was not coming through continuously. That defense is sadder than you think. I climbed down from the ladder. Leah took the roller from me. Why didn't you fix it? I thought I could wait until after the wedding. Why? Because roofs aren't memorable. Marcy stared at me. You think a flooded hallway isn't memorable? You know what I mean. I wanted to do something important for Graham. Leah rolled slowly over the center of the stain. And if he'd taken the money, she asked, what would you have done? Waited another year. The sisters exchanged a look. I hated when my children did that. It made me understand why Natalie disliked feeling outnumbered. I made a choice, I said. A familiar one, Leah replied. There was no accusation in her voice. That made the words harder to reject. When the paint dried, the stain was finally gone. I stood beneath the smooth white ceiling and waited to feel victorious. It looked like a ceiling. Graham returned for the rest of his boxes 12 days later. This time he came alone and parked a rented van in the driveway. I can help, I said. I've got it. You'll hurt your back. I'm 35. Backs are not impressed by age. He ignored me and carried the amplifier downstairs first. We worked mostly without speaking. I held doors. He lifted boxes. When he found the donate carton, he opened it and removed the martini glass tie. Dad gave me this. He gave it to you as a warning. I wore it to a job interview. You did not. I got the job. Then the employer was reckless. He smiled and laid the tie over the keep box. You can donate the shirts, he said, and the computer books. Nobody needs a manual for Windows Vista. What about the glove? He picked it up. Where's the other one? If I knew, they wouldn't be in a donation box. He dropped it back. When the room was empty, pale rectangles remained in the dust where the boxes had been. The space looked larger and less personal. Graham stood in the center and turned slowly. What are you going to do with it? He asked. I don't know. Guest room? It already has a bed. Right? He sounded disappointed, though I could not imagine what answer he had hoped for. Your things being here did not preserve your room, I said. I didn't say that. You looked like I had removed a plaque. He glanced toward the window. It's weird. Yes. For you too? Yes. He nodded. At the bottom of the stairs, he asked whether I wanted lunch. I nearly said no from sheer surprise. Now? Unless you're busy. I looked toward the empty room. I'm not busy. We went to a diner near the highway where Peter used to order breakfast at any hour and complain that dinner menus were an attack on personal freedom. Graham chose a booth in the back. He ordered a burger. I ordered soup and immediately regretted it when the waitress placed a bowl of beige liquid in front of me. What is this? I asked. You ordered chowder. I expected identifiable potatoes. They're in there somewhere. He took a bite of his burger. For several minutes, we discussed the van, rental, traffic, and the disturbing durability of his old amplifier. Then he folded his napkin into a narrow strip. Natalie and I are still in counseling, he said. I assumed. She's still at her sister's. I'm sorry. She comes to the apartment sometimes. I waited. We talk, he added. That's generally what counseling recommends. You know what I mean. I don't, actually. He pulled the paper strip tighter between his fingers. She says she might come home. That sounds hopeful. She also says coming home doesn't mean setting a wedding date. That sounds reasonable. Whose side are you on? The question was so familiar that I almost answered it the old way. Yours, always yours. Instead, I stirred the chowder. I don't think a marriage works if everyone has a side. She put you on one, and you used me on both. His jaw tightened. I put down the spoon. You invited me to lunch. I know. If you want company, I can give you company. If you want me to declare Natalie wrong so you can avoid what happened, I can't. I told her the truth. All of it? I think so. That is an unusual answer. There were things I didn't remember until we talked about them. Such as... He looked toward the window. I told her you wanted the ballroom because I wanted the ballroom. I said nothing. I thought it would be embarrassing to have the reception in that small room, he continued. Half the pictures online make it look like a conference center. You could have said that. She wanted to save money. So you told her I cared. I knew you wouldn't object to something nicer. You did not ask me. No. He flattened the paper strip against the table. And the invitations? I asked. I assumed you'd want relatives there. You invented a number, yes. Why 10? I don't know. It sounded real. Did excluding me sound real? His eyes met mine. Natalie said if I couldn't choose our marriage over my mother, we shouldn't get married. So you chose. I panicked. You agreed. I thought she'd calm down. Before or after the wedding? Before. I thought once everything was paid for, we'd figure it out. I stared at him. You thought you could invite me later? Maybe. And still tell Natalie you had supported her. I didn't have a detailed plan. No, you had my check. He pushed his plate away. I knew you'd be angry, he said. I didn't think you'd actually refuse the money. Why? Because you said you'd give it to me. That cannot be the only reason. He looked tired suddenly. Not the gray exhaustion of moving boxes, but something older. Because you always come through, he said. Even if you hurt me. I didn't think of it that way. Think of it now. He turned his water glass in a damp circle. I knew you'd still love me, he said. There it was. Not an apology. Not yet. But the shape of the ugliest truth. I leaned back in the booth. You counted on my love making me easier to mistreat. His face tightened. I wouldn't say it like that, I know. The waitress appeared and asked whether everything was all right. Graham looked at his untouched fries. Fine, he said. I said, the chowder has no visible potatoes. She nodded gravely. We've had complaints. For a moment, none of us could maintain the seriousness of the table. Graham laughed. The waitress smiled. I found one small cube of potato and held it up on my spoon like proof of life. After she left, Graham wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. I don't know if Natalie should marry me, he said. Neither do I. I thought you'd say she shouldn't. That decision does not belong to me. What if I'm asking your opinion? You aren't. You're asking me to make the decision easier. He looked annoyed, then considered it. Maybe, he said. We paid separately. He did not argue when I placed cash beside my bowl. In the parking lot, the rented van sat full of the remains of his old room. Graham opened the driver's door, then looked across the roof at me. If we set another date, he said, would you come? I don't answer invitations that haven't been made. That sounds like a yes. It sounds like what I said. He shook his head, but there was no anger in it. I drove home to the empty room and the repaired ceiling. For the first time in years, nothing in either place was waiting for Graham. I stood in the doorway and let that be true. The room did not become anything right away. For 3 weeks, it held a bed, pale rectangles on the carpet, and the clean smell of dust where boxes had been. Every time I passed the open door, I felt as if I had forgotten to finish a sentence. Marcy wanted me to turn it into a dressing room. You don't own enough clothes, I said. That's why you need the room. Aspiration. Leah suggested an office. I'm retired. People still have papers. I spent 42 years trying to have fewer papers. In the end, I bought a reading chair from a furniture outlet and placed it near the window. It was deep green, wider than necessary, and expensive enough that I walked around the store twice before letting the salesman write up the order. When the delivery men brought it upstairs, one of them looked at the empty walls. Starting over? He asked. Something like that. I moved a small table beside the chair, added a lamp, and put 6 books on the windowsill. I left the bed where it was. The room could belong to me. without becoming useless to anyone else. That distinction felt important. Graham called once a week. The first calls were brief and overly polite. "How's the roof?" Still attached. "How's Leah?" "You can call her." "Right." "How's counseling?" "Still expensive. You can call someone else about that." He laughed, and the conversation moved on. He did not ask me to speak to Natalie. I did not ask whether she had returned to the apartment. When I felt the question rising, I held it behind my teeth until it passed. Leah tested my new restraint one evening when she called after a terrible day at work. "My supervisor changed the deadline again," she said. Then he asked why the project was behind. "Would you like advice, help, or an audience?" The silence on the line lasted so long that I checked the screen. "Who are you?" she asked. "I read an article. That explains the unnatural phrasing." "What do you want? An audience, all right?" She complained for 20 minutes. I did not offer to rewrite an email, call anyone, bring food, or create a folder with tabs. At the end, she said, "That was nice. It was agony." I know. The first cold rain of the season came on a Wednesday. I walked the upstairs hallway twice and inspected the ceiling. Dry. I stood beneath it, listening to water move across the new shingles, then went into the green chair and read until midnight. Natalie called the next morning. I moved back, she said. No greeting. She had begun to borrow from Leah's conversational style. "All right, last week. I'm glad you told me." I wasn't sure whether Graham had. He didn't. That seemed to please her. "We're still going to counseling," she said. I assumed. We made rules. About me? About everyone. I waited. One of them is that he doesn't use other people to say things he's afraid to say. That sounds useful. And I don't issue ultimatums I'm not prepared to own. That sounds useful too. Her voice sharpened slightly. "You don't have to sound surprised. I'm trying to sound careful." "Why?" "Because the last time we spoke, you told me you enjoyed hurting me a little. The last time we spoke, you admitted you enjoyed proving he lied. A little." Neither of us said anything. Then Natalie laughed. It was not a warm laugh, exactly. It was the sound of two people discovering they had arrived at the same unpleasant landmark from different roads. "Graham wants us to have dinner," she said. "With me?" "Yes." "Do you?" "I think we need to." "That is not what I asked." She exhaled. "I don't know yet." "Then wait until you do. He'll say we're avoiding it. You can tell him that was my decision." She caught it immediately. "No," she said. "I can tell him I'm not ready. Good. Did you just test me?" "No, you did. I was trying to be helpful." Dangerous territory. We ended the call without making dinner plans. 2 Sundays later, Graham asked if he and Natalie could come over. "What for?" I said. "Dinner? What else?" "Nothing else. Are you bringing a checkbook?" He groaned. "No." Then 6 o'clock. They arrived at 5:50 carrying a store-bought apple pie and a bottle of wine. Graham held up the pie. "I thought we should bring dessert," he said. Natalie looked at him. "What?" he asked. "You almost said I thought." I corrected it. I noticed. They stood on the porch, waiting for me to understand a piece of progress I had not seen being built. "Come in," I said. I had made pot roast, mashed potatoes, and carrots because roast was difficult to interpret as a statement. The table looked too formal with the good serving bowl, so I replaced it with the chipped yellow one Peter had used for popcorn. Natalie noticed the new chair when she went upstairs to wash her hands. "You changed Graham's room," she said when she returned. "I changed the room." He glanced toward the stairs. I said it looked good. I didn't say it didn't. Her words had an edge, but she touched his shoulder as she passed. He did not defend himself against an accusation she had not made. We sat. Graham poured wine. Natalie passed the carrots. I asked about her work, and she described an office renovation that had trapped half the staff beside a temporary wall and one functioning electrical outlet. "The architects keep saying it's a flexible workspace," she said. "That means nobody knows where the copier is." Graham said, "They put it in the conference room. You weren't supposed to tell anyone. I'm part of the resistance." The conversation almost felt normal. Not the old normal, where Graham filled every pause and I watched Natalie for signs of irritation. This normal required more attention. Every sentence seemed to arrive with its own fragile legs. Halfway through dinner, Graham asked whether I had spoken to Dennis. Not recently. He called me. Then I assume he spoke enough for both of you. He wants to know whether we're choosing a new date. My fork stopped. Natalie looked at him. We said we weren't bringing that up tonight. I'm explaining why he called. You can explain without announcing our business. You're the one who told your sister. My sister is not Uncle Dennis. No one is Uncle Dennis but Uncle Dennis, I said. They both looked at me. That was Peter's line, Graham said. He used it often. The tension loosened by a fraction. I cut a carrot in half. You do not owe me information about the wedding. Natalie studied her plate. We're considering a new date. All right. A small ceremony, Graham added. Very small. All right. At a restaurant, Natalie said. They have a private room and a courtyard. We'd pay for everything ourselves. You don't need to emphasize that. We do, she said. I looked at her. She held my gaze. Then I heard you, I said. Graham reached for his wine. We haven't finalized the guest list. Natalie put down her fork. He closed his eyes briefly. That came out badly. It came out like a warning, she said. I meant we're still planning, I said. You don't have to decide anything at this table. That sounds like you don't want to come, Graham replied. You haven't invited me. We're talking about it. That is a conversation the two of you should finish before involving me. Natalie nodded. Graham looked from her to me. You agree on everything now? No, we said together. He laughed. We did not. After dinner, Graham washed dishes while Natalie dried and I wrapped the leftover roast. He broke one wine glass. It slipped from his wet hand, struck the edge of the sink, and cracked neatly down the side. Don't move, I said. I'm not bleeding. There's glass in the sink. I can see it. Natalie handed him a towel. Let your mother handle the glass. We both looked at her. She looked alarmed. I meant because she knows where the trash is. Graham started laughing. I did too. Natalie folded her arms. That was not funny. It was a little funny, I said. She tried to stay annoyed and failed. We cleaned the glass together. While Graham carried trash to the garage, Natalie stood beside the counter, turning the unbroken stem of the wine glass between her fingers. I'm not asking you for money, she said. I know. And if we have another wedding, I'm not inviting you because of what happened. I hope not. I mean, I wouldn't do it out of guilt. I understood. She set the glass stem down. I still think you interfere. I still think you use firmness as permission to be unkind. Her mouth tightened. But, I added, I am working on the first part. I'm working on the second. Graham came back in. What did I miss? Nothing, Natalie said. Then she caught herself. Elaine and I told each other what we still don't like. He looked concerned. How did that go? We're both still standing, I said. At the door, Natalie surprised me by hugging me. It was brief and awkward. One of her earrings caught in my hair and we had to separate carefully while Graham tried not to smile. That did not happen, she told him. I saw nothing. She walked to the car. Graham lingered on the porch. Thank you, he said. For dinner? For not making it harder. The old answer rose quickly. I would never make it harder for you. I did not say it. I was honest, I told him. He nodded. That's what I meant. Their taillights disappeared at the corner. In the kitchen, 3 wine glasses remained. I put them away without mourning the 4th. The dinner did not fix us. Natalie still sometimes answered my texts with a single word. Graham still began sentences with, she thinks, before correcting himself. I still offered advice no one had requested, then had to pull it back like a dog caught carrying a shoe. But weeks collected. Graham called to ask if I knew a good mechanic, and when I named one, he thanked me without asking me to schedule anything. Natalie sent me a photograph of a table arrangement and wrote, Too much? I replied, Do you want my opinion? She wrote, That is why I asked. I told her the flowers looked as though they were attempting to hide the guests. She sent back a laughing face and chose smaller ones. No one mentioned invitations. The restaurant deposit was paid. Graham told me that directly and added, "We split it." Natalie chose a simple dress. The honeymoon remained postponed. They planned 2 nights at a nearby inn instead. One evening, Graham called while I was sitting in the green chair. "Are you home tomorrow?" he asked. "For part of the day. Can I come by? What do you need?" "To talk." "About the wedding?" "Yes." My hand tightened around the phone. "Will Natalie be with you?" "No." "Does she know you're coming?" "Yes." I looked out at the dark window. My reflection sat in the chair that had replaced his boxes. "What time?" I asked. 10? All right. He arrived the next morning at 9:55. Through the window, I watched him sit in the car with both hands on the steering wheel. When he finally came to the porch, he carried no envelope, no box, and no request I could see. I opened the door before he knocked. He looked at me and said, "I need to ask you something, and I don't want you to answer until I've said the whole thing." I stepped aside. This time, he closed the door behind himself. Graham walked into the kitchen, but did not sit. He stood behind the same chair he had knocked over weeks earlier, one hand resting on its back. The repaired dent remained visible if the light caught it from the right angle. "Go ahead," I said. He drew a breath. "Natalie and I set a new date. It's 6 weeks from Saturday. The ceremony will be in the courtyard at Bellwether, and dinner is in the private room. There will be 32 people." I waited. "We paid the deposit ourselves. We have a spreadsheet. Natalie made it so it has colors and rules." "That sounds like Natalie. She says my version of a budget is writing a number at the top and hoping the rest of the page respects it." "That sounds like you." He smiled nervously, then looked down at the chair. "I want you to come." I did not answer. "You said you wouldn't answer a hypothetical invitation. This isn't hypothetical. I'm asking you to come to my wedding." His fingers tightened around the wood. "Are you asking because Natalie told you to?" I said. "No. Does she want me there?" "Yes." "That is not the same question." He nodded. "I want you there." "Natalie also wants you there. She said I had to be the one to ask because I'm the one who sat at this table and let her tell you that you weren't invited." She said the words. I let them stand. The refrigerator turned on behind him. Graham glanced toward the hallway photograph, then back at me. "I told myself I was protecting my marriage," he said. "But there wasn't a marriage. You were right about that. There was a wedding I wanted to get through without disappointing anybody. You disappointed everyone. I know. Eventually." "Yes." He pulled out the chair, but remained standing beside it. "I made you into the problem when I talked to Natalie because it kept her from being angry with me. Then I made her into the problem when I talked to you because I still wanted the money. I told Leah things neither of you said. I told Dennis you knew about the guest list because I didn't want the family asking why I'd agreed to exclude my mother. You did more than agree. I know. You asked for the check first." His face flushed. "Yes." I looked at the drawer where the checkbook remained behind takeout menus, the torn pieces still tucked inside. "Why?" I asked. "I've answered that. You've explained the ballroom. You've explained that you thought I'd pay anyway. You haven't explained how you sat there while Natalie told me I was not invited and still believed you could reach across the table for my checkbook." He lowered himself into the chair. "I thought the money had already become mine. Because I promised it. Because you're my mother." The answer came quietly. I leaned against the counter. He continued before I could speak. "I don't mean mothers owe their sons money. I mean I stopped seeing a difference between what you had and what you would use to help me. You always made it seem like there wasn't a difference. That is not entirely fair. I know. Do you?" "Yes." "You offered help. I learned to expect it. Those aren't the same thing." I sat across from him. Graham rubbed his palms against his jeans. "When Natalie said you couldn't come, I thought you'd be furious. I knew it would hurt you. But I also thought you'd forgive me because you always do. You said that at lunch. I didn't say the rest. What is the rest? He looked at me. I thought you were safer to hurt. The words did not surprise me. That made them worse. Safer than Natalie, I said. Yes. Because she might leave. Yes. And I wouldn't. Yes. My eyes burned. I turned my face toward the window until the backyard came back into focus. You used my love as insurance, I said. I did. The lack of defense left nowhere for my anger to strike. Graham's voice broke when he said, I'm sorry. I folded my hands on the table. Which part? All of it. That is easy to say. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before you opened the checkbook. I'm sorry I let Natalie say it because I was too afraid to say it myself. I'm sorry I made Dad part of it. I knew exactly what saying he'd be ashamed would do to you. I looked at him. He swallowed. I'm sorry I told people you were trying to control the guest list. I'm sorry I called the money my contribution. I'm sorry I asked Leah to help pay after I blamed you for not paying. I'm sorry I came here every time something went wrong and expected you to repair it. His eyes were wet now. He did not wipe them. I'm sorry I thought loving me meant you'd keep accepting whatever version of me showed up. The kitchen was silent except for the refrigerator and a faint ticking from the clock above the stove. I asked, What do you want from me right now? I want you at the wedding. Forgiveness? Yes. But I don't think I get to ask for it on a deadline. It was such an unfamiliar answer that I searched his face for the person who had given it to him. He noticed. Natalie didn't write this, he said. I didn't say she did. You had the face. What face? The one that says a competent woman must be operating me from another room. Despite everything, I laughed. He smiled and wiped his cheek. I've been writing things down before counseling, he said. Every time I want to say, Natalie thinks or Mom wants, I have to stop and write what I think or want. That sounds exhausting. It is. Apparently I have fewer thoughts than I believed. You've always had plenty of thoughts. I have plenty of reactions. Different category. I let the quiet settle. Then I said, I need to apologize for some things too. His expression changed. Not relief exactly, but hope. Do not confuse my part with an excuse for yours, I added. Hope adjusted itself. I have used helping to keep myself close to you, I said. Not consciously, not every time, but enough. I kept your key because being the person you called in an emergency made me feel necessary. I kept your boxes because having pieces of your life in my house made the distance feel temporary. I gave advice you didn't ask for, then acted wounded when you did not follow it. You were trying to help. Yes, intentions are not a pardon. His eyes dropped to the repaired dent in the floor. I made it hard for you to tell me no, I said. But I did not make you lie. I did not make you exclude me. I did not make you ask for the check. I know, if I come to this wedding, I am not agreeing that everything is over. I know, I'm not funding it. We wouldn't take the money. You say that quickly. Because we already agreed. No money from either family. We can afford what we planned. What about the honeymoon? 2 nights at an inn with a fireplace and suspicious online reviews. That sounds romantic. One reviewer said the towels smelled like onions. Memorable. He laughed, then became serious again. I don't want the check. Good. I want my mother there. I looked at him for a long time. When you picture me there, I said, what am I doing? He seemed confused. What do you mean? Am I there because guests will ask questions if I'm absent? Am I in a photograph so the family looks repaired? Am I standing near Peter's picture so everyone can feel something? No. Then what am I doing? He thought. You're complaining that the courtyard chairs are uncomfortable. I probably will. You're telling Leah there isn't enough food before dinner has started. Likely. You're asking me whether I'm sure right up until the ceremony. I will not do that. I know. His mouth pulled into a sad smile. That's the old version. He looked down at his hands. I picture you seeing me get married, he said, because you're my mother and I want you to see it. My throat tightened. I need a little time, I told him. His face fell, but he nodded. How much? Not 6 weeks. Okay, give me until tonight. That isn't much time. I'm aware. He stood. At the front door, he hesitated. Can I hug you? The question hurt in a completely different place. Yes. He put his arms around me carefully, as though I had become breakable since the last time. I held him tighter than I intended. For 1 second, my hand found the back of his head the way it had when he was sick, frightened, exhausted, or pretending he was none of those things. Then I lowered it. When he stepped away, his eyes were red. I'll wait, he said. You've waited less than a minute. I'm practicing. He walked to his car. I did not call Leah or Marcy. I went upstairs and sat in the green chair. The winter light fell across the empty section of carpet where Graham's boxes had once stood. I imagined the courtyard, 32 chairs, Natalie's parents, Leah, Dennis, probably speaking to everyone as if he had arranged the weather. I imagined Graham fastening Peter's cufflinks without me. I imagined myself at home, safe from the awkwardness and forever tied to it. Then I imagined attending and discovering that apology did not erase humiliation, that I could love him and still remember the checkbook open on my table, that both things might have to sit beside each other. At 6, I called. Graham answered on the first ring but did not speak. I'll come, I said. His breath left him. Thank you. I am coming as your mother, not as proof that we are fixed. I understand, and I will complain if the chairs are uncomfortable. I'm counting on it. The formal invitation arrived 4 days later. My name was written on the envelope in Natalie's neat block letters. Inside, beneath the printed details, she had added a note. We both want you there. No money. No performance. Just you. I placed it on the mantel beside Peter's photograph. Marcy took me shopping for something to wear. Leah came as emotional regulation, though she spent most of the afternoon hiding from salespeople. I refused navy. That color is innocent, Marcy said. It knows what it did. I chose a deep plum dress with a simple neckline and sleeves that did not require negotiation. Marcy cried in the fitting room, denied crying, and blamed the fluorescent lighting. Natalie called the week before the wedding. I wanted to ask about Peter's photograph, she said. Graham wants one near the guest book. He mentioned that before. I know. Which picture? The one from Leah's graduation. Unless that's painful. Everything is painful if you hold it the right way. She was quiet. I'll bring it, I said. Thank you. Natalie? Yes. Do you want me there? The question had been answered in ink, but I needed to hear it. Yes, she said. I didn't before. I do now. Why? Because if Graham and I are going to be married, I don't want our first act as a family to be pretending you don't exist. That is not the same as wanting me. No. She inhaled. I want you there because I'm tired of knowing you only through what Graham says. Some of what I know directly is difficult. Some of it is funny. I'd like the chance to find out the rest. It was not warm enough to be sentimental. It was honest enough to accept. On the morning of the wedding, rain moved softly across the roof. I stood beneath the repaired hallway ceiling in my plum dress and listened for a drop that never came. Peter's photograph rested in a padded bag by the stairs. The invitation was tucked into my purse, though I knew where I was going. Leah honked from the driveway. I carried the photograph outside and locked the door behind me. At the restaurant, the courtyard chairs were already arranged beneath strings of small white lights. They looked exactly as uncomfortable as promised. Graham stood near the open doors in a dark suit, one hand pressed over the pocket that held his father's cufflinks. When he saw me, his whole face changed. He left the people around him and came straight toward me. He stopped a few feet away as if reaching me required permission. You came, he said. I said I would. I know. His eyes moved over my dress. You look beautiful. Thank you. Not navy. Navy and I needed time apart. He smiled, then glanced at the padded bag in my hand. Is that Dad's picture? Yes. I can take it. Peter and I stood shoulder to shoulder outside Leah's college auditorium. His tie was crooked. My hair had collapsed in the humidity. Neither of us looked elegant, but we looked happy enough to be careless. "This one's perfect," Graham said. "You told Natalie you wanted it." "I did." "Good." He carried it to the guest book table himself. Leah came through the courtyard doors behind me wearing a dark green dress. "I found parking 3 blocks away and may have committed a misdemeanor. You honked at me. You were standing in the rain. I was locking the door. You lock a door like you're sealing a tomb." Marcy appeared with an umbrella she had somehow turned inside out. "These chairs are terrible," she announced. "I promised to complain about them. I'll assist." Guests moved around us, finding seats, greeting relatives, and pretending not to look too closely at me. Dennis approached with the solemn expression of a man preparing to say something important. "Elaine," he began. "Not today," Marcy said. "I was going to tell her she looks lovely." "Oh, proceed." Dennis kissed my cheek. "You look lovely. Thank you. And I'm glad the family found its way. Your time has expired," Marcy told him. He walked off, muttering about civility. I looked toward Graham. He was standing beside Peter's photograph, talking to the restaurant manager. The silver cufflinks were not on his wrists. When he noticed me watching, he raised one hand. "Mom?" I crossed the courtyard. "One of them won't fasten," he said. "Can you help?" He led me into a small room off the dining area where the restaurant stored extra chairs and folded tablecloths. His suit jacket hung over the back of a chair. On a narrow counter sat the open velvet box. Graham held out his left wrist. One side of the cuff had slipped through, but the small bar refused to turn. "Dad used to fight with this one," I said. "He did? Every time. He blamed his wrists. What was wrong with them? Nothing. Your father believed objects developed personal grudges. I worked the bar with my thumbnail until it turned." Graham watched my hands. "I wish he were here," he said. The old version of him might have told me what Peter would think or feel, using his father to fill whatever silence was inconvenient. This time, he only missed him. "So do I said. I guided the cuff link through the second hole and flattened the bar. There. He looked at the silver oval against his white cuff. "I almost brought them back," he said. "Why?" "After the wedding was postponed. Having them at the apartment felt wrong. They were not part of the bargain. I know that now." I fastened the other cuff. Graham lowered his arms but did not move away. "You shouldn't have had to pay to be treated like my mother," he said. "No, I keep thinking about the way I reached for the checkbook. So do I." His face tightened. "I don't say that to punish you," I told him. "I say it because I'm not going to pretend the memory disappears whenever you apologize. I understand. I believe you're sorry." He looked up. "That matters," I said. "It just isn't the same as being finished." "I know." He reached for his jacket. Before he put it on, I said, "I also should have taught you sooner that help can have limits without love having limits." He turned the jacket in his hands. "You tried to teach me lots of things. I made many folders with tabs. They came with the folders." He laughed. I straightened his collar after he put on the jacket. The gesture happened before I decided whether it was too much. Graham stood still and let me finish. "I wanted you here because I wanted you here," he said. "I know. Not for the pictures. I know. Not because Natalie, Graham." He stopped. "You don't have to keep proving it every 30 seconds. I'm new at this." Apparently, there was a soft knock on the door. Natalie stood in the opening. Her dress was simple, ivory and cut close through the waist. She wore her hair pinned back with small pearl clips. Her mother stood behind her, holding a garment bag and looking worried about the timing. "I was told the groom had disappeared into the linen closet," Natalie said. "Technically, it's the extra chair room," Graham replied. She looked at his wrists. "They work." Mom fixed them. Something passed across Natalie's face, recognition, caution, perhaps relief. "You look beautiful," I told her. "Thank you." Her gaze moved over my plum dress. "So do you." Graham kissed her cheek. Natalie's mother made a distressed noise. "You're not supposed to see each other yet." "We've been living together for 2 years, Sharon," Natalie said. "It's tradition." "Then forget what you saw," Graham told her. Sharon ushered Natalie away, still protesting the destruction of ritual. Graham looked at me. "She's more nervous than we are." "Impossible." He held the door open. In the courtyard, I placed Peter's photograph beside the guest book. Someone had set a small sprig of greenery against the frame. No flowers hid the guests. Leah and Marcy had saved me a chair in the front row. Natalie's parents sat across the aisle. Dennis was behind us, whispering to his wife until Marcy turned and stared at him. The chair was as uncomfortable as predicted. I shifted once. Graham, standing near the front, noticed. He smiled. I smiled back. The ceremony was short. No one spoke about betrayal, money, or repaired families. The officiant talked about honesty, patience, and choosing one another repeatedly after the celebration had ended. Graham and Natalie exchanged plain vows they had written themselves. Natalie promised to say what she meant before resentment said it for her. Graham promised to own his choices, especially the difficult ones. Neither sentence meant anything to the other guests beyond what wedding vows usually meant. I knew what each had cost. When the officiant pronounced them married, Graham kissed Natalie. The courtyard filled with the sound of chairs moving and people laughing as though they had all been holding the same breath. I did not cry until Leah put her hand over mine. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "Yes." "You're crushing my fingers." I let go. The private dining room had 8 small tables and no dance floor. Graham had been right about the ballroom. This room looked less impressive in photographs. In person, it felt warm. People could hear one another without shouting. The food arrived on large shared platters instead of individual decorated plates. Marcy sat beside me and surveyed the roast chicken. "This is better than a floral chandelier," she said. "You were not invited to judge the missing upgrades. I was born to judge missing upgrades." Dennis stood to make a toast. Marcy whispered, "This could last through dessert." It did not. Dennis surprised everyone by keeping it short. To Graham and Natalie, he said, "May they always speak directly to each other because the rest of us are unreliable." Marcy raised her glass. "He stole that from me. You have never said anything that concise." After dinner, music played through speakers in the corners. There was no formal mother-son dance on the schedule. I was grateful. I did not want to perform forgiveness in a circle of watching relatives. Graham came to my table anyway. "Dance with me?" "There is no dance floor. We've made poor spatial choices before." He offered his hand. I let him lead me to the small open area near the courtyard doors. Other guests continued talking. A few couples joined us, but no one announced anything or turned to watch. Graham rested one hand lightly against my back. "This is where Dad would tell me I'm doing it wrong," he said. He would tell everyone they were doing it wrong, then step on my foot. I remember. We moved carefully in the limited space. "Are you having a good time?" he asked. "I am." "Really?" "The chairs were terrible." "I know. The chicken was good." High praise. "And your wife looks happy." He looked across the room at Natalie. "She does. So do you." "I am." He seemed surprised by his own answer. When the song ended, he hugged me. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Thank you for asking." He returned to Natalie. I took an envelope from my purse and placed it with the cards on the gift table. There was no check inside. I had written them a letter about the difference between help and rescue, about how love could survive a no, and about how a marriage was made in the conversations no one else heard. I had removed 3 paragraphs before sealing it. At the end of the night, Natalie found me near the coat rack. "You're leaving?" she asked. "It's almost 11, I know. I've been married for hours. How is it?" "Mostly standing." She looked toward the gift table where the restaurant staff had begun gathering cards. "I saw your envelope," she said. "It is a card." I assumed. I thought I should clarify. A faint smile appeared. Then she touched my arm. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" For telling you that you weren't invited the way I did. I've apologized for the way, but I kept telling myself the decision was separate. She glanced toward Graham. It wasn't. I wanted him to prove something, and I used you to do it. I waited. I don't expect you to forget, she added. I won't. Good. The answer surprised both of us. Natalie nodded. Good. I hugged her. This time, her earring did not catch in my hair. Graham and Natalie spent 2 nights at the inn with the onion-scented towels. When they returned, they brought me a jar of locally made jam and no laundry. Our relationship did not become effortless. Graham still occasionally called with a problem disguised as a question. Sometimes I helped. Sometimes I asked what he planned to do first. Natalie and I still disagreed about holidays, food, and whether a text ending in a period sounded angry. I did not get another key to their apartment. Graham's old room remained mine. I read in the green chair, and when guests stayed over, they slept in the bed without moving boxes first. The check pieces stayed in the drawer for several more months. One morning, while looking for a takeout menu, I found them tucked behind the unused checks. I held the 4 pieces together on the table, my half-signature almost lined up. Then I dropped them into the trash. Outside, rain began to strike the windows. It grew heavier through the afternoon, running in silver sheets down the glass. I went upstairs once, out of habit, and looked at the clean hallway ceiling. No stain, no pot, nothing waiting to be caught. My phone rang while I was making coffee. "Mom?" Graham said. "Natalie and I were wondering if you're free for dinner next week. What do you need?" He laughed softly. Dinner. I opened the calendar on the refrigerator. Wednesday had a dentist appointment. Friday, I was meeting Marcy. My Thursday square was empty. "Thursday works," I said. 6:30? Fine, we'll bring dessert. Not apple pie. No apple pie. All right. Rain drummed against the new roof. "I'll see you Thursday," I said.